Chapter 1490. The muscles on the Wolf Emperor's face twitched as he said fiercely, "If we don't survive, we'll be letting down Little Eagle." The Tiger Emperor acted out of righteous indignation. "Brother Rock, don't blame him." The Rock Emperor suddenly burst into tears. "Blame him? Why should I blame him? I only blame myself. Actually, my injuries are slightly lighter than Little Eagle's. Why didn't I rush over and self-destruct immediately? If I self-destructed, the Sea Emperor would definitely be dead by the time the two of them arrived. I'm the one who let Little Eagle down. His sacrifice was in vain." At the mention of the Eagle Emperor, all the surviving experts' faces were filled with tears. The Tiger Emperor suddenly sneered. "What a good way to put the overall situation first. One brother sacrificed himself, 7 brothers are dying, and hundreds of elite subordinates are dead. He actually didn't even say a word and went to take care of the overall situation. So it turns out that us fools risked our lives to snatch the sea-suppressing divine staff was actually a stupid act. It's always him who puts the overall situation first. Who doesn't know what happened to Kitty back then? Isn't it all for his dignity as the common lord? Ever since he ascended to the throne, his matters are the major matters and the overall situation. Complying with him is disobedience and neglecting the overall situation. Wasn't the change in the Fox Emperor Palace also caused Yuer's death? The root of it was the rumor that the child had the common lord fate of the demon race. That touched his reverse scale, causing the Fox Emperor to betray him. Now it's Little Eagle's turn. Little Eagle sacrificed his life for the sea-suppressing divine staff. He just doesn't care what happens in the end. Guess who's next? The Leopard Emperor said hatefully. All the demons in the land, sea, and air have submitted? The complete unification of the demon alliance? An unprecedented feat? Can we obtain it by sacrificing our brothers? That's too easy. Our brothers are dying one after another. How long will it take for us to wake up to reality? The Phoenix Emperor is already trying his best to mediate. He wants to comfort us, but unfortunately he doesn't have the qualifications. If it's not the Demon Emperor's words, they will never be justified. The Crane Emperor smiled bitterly and said something that was fair and just. The Phoenix Monarch is always the mediator, but all the benefits belong to Long Yutian. Isn't it the same this time? Even if Long Yutian himself were to console you, would you accept it? The Tiger Monarch's face was full of hatred as he gritted his teeth. At this moment, a mid-level sage of the rock race stood out and said, "Your Majesty, what should we do next? Do we still need to pledge our loyalty to Long Yutian?" Emperor Rock's gaze slowly shifted as he looked at the 6 Eagle Saints who had survived squeezed together. The 6 Eagle clan members all had cold expressions on their faces as they stood indifferently to the side. Their eyes were empty as they looked at the group of monarchs, not saying a single word. The Rock Emperor strode over and stood in front of the 6 Eagle Saints. He enunciated each word clearly. The Eagle Emperor risked his life to save our lives. Now that the Eagle Emperor was gone, I will let these 6 Eagle clan brothers help us make a decision. The 6 Eagle race turned around and looked at him blankly. "We'll listen to you on what to do next. You can decide however you want. It can be any decision." Hot tears suddenly rolled down the eyes of the 6 Eagle race saints. One of them cried and gritted his teeth as he said word by word, "From now on, the Eagle race and the Sea race, the Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix Emperor, are irreconcilable enemies. As long as there's a chance to kill them, we will go all out. We won't stop until we die. Either we die or they die." The high-ranking Eagle Saint said word by word with tears in his eyes. "From today onwards, the Eagle race will no longer belong to the Demon Alliance." There was silence. All the remaining experts had solemn expressions on their faces. The atmosphere was unprecedentedly heavy. The sea breeze howled as it blew across the sky. Emperor Rock's expression was solemn as he said indifferently, "Brothers, do you have any objections to the Eagle race's decision?" There was silence. None of them spoke. Emperor Rock frowned and asked again, "Brothers, do you have any objections to the Eagle race's decision?" They had to have a concrete answer. The Tiger Emperor gritted his teeth and said, I don't either. No. Leave the Demon Alliance. Even if our bodies are smashed to pieces, our clans are wiped out and all of us are dead, we must vent our anger today." The Leopard Emperor sneered. "I finally understand. Mao, our little fox and the others understand better than us. They would rather die fighting than for the so-called big picture. Now it's Little Eagle's turn. He really fought to the death for the demon race and died without a complete corpse. Then the Demon King immediately helped his enemy to recover from his injuries, and shook hands with him. Such a demon alliance, such brothers. What's there to miss? The so-called big picture is just his big picture. The Leopard Emperor said fiercely. All the saints present had fierce expressions on their faces. It was as if a flame was burning in their hearts. The Wolf Emperor suddenly let out a long roar that shook the sky. Hot tears rolled down his cheeks as he did not say a word. The 6 Eagle Saints' eyes were filled with tears as they cried bitterly. Emperor, did you see that? We must avenge you. According to the rules of the Eagle race, when an emperor dies, there must be a brother to accompany him. But we can't accompany the emperor to the netherworld now. We still have to take revenge. If we don't take revenge, even if we accompany the emperor, we won't be able to show our face. Once we take revenge, we'll immediately go. Emperor, please wait a moment. The netherworld is a step behind. On the mountain, endless hatred spread and rose. The surroundings were busy. The sea race was quite a distance away from this mountain. Furthermore, everyone knew that the demons on this mountain were great demons of the current era. They had a deep feud with the sea race that could not be reconciled. Who would dare to approach and court death? Even though they heard the commotion, the boundless sea race still acted rashly. Emperor Rock took out a large pile of natural treasures from his interspatial ring and swallowed them in large mouthfuls, circulating his energy to digest them. Then a fierce glint flashed in his eyes. Everyone, use your remaining strength to send me off. I'm going to the sky now. The demons? I'm going to look for Supreme Yellow Cloud. Emperor Rock took a deep breath and sneered. Why did Supreme Cloud steal the sea-suppressing divine staff? Why did he abandon it here? It's one thing for the sea-suppressing divine staff to be overburdened, but I believe that Supreme Cloud didn't even want to take the sea-suppressing divine staff away. He only used it to push the boat along with the current, causing an extreme battle between the demons and the sea race. The facts have proven that he succeeded. This deadlock was completely set up by Supreme Cloud. Supreme Cloud's abandonment of the divine staff has far-reaching effects. He definitely wouldn't have failed to consider the current situation and should have a backup plan. Now we need to cooperate. We need a powerful ally. Emperor Rock took a deep breath. It's inevitable for us to cooperate with him. Otherwise, we won't have the chance to join forces with Ying Long Feng to avenge our brothers. The Tiger Emperor was very displeased with the Rock Emperor's words. He pursed his lips and said, "It's mostly Supreme Cloud's fault that we ended up like this, yet you still want to work with him? Are you out of your mind?" Emperor Rock snorted coldly. "You're the one who's out of your mind. Why didn't he harm us? Shouldn't he? Regardless of reason or emotion, no matter which aspect, they should have harmed us. Even if we put aside his identity as a human, shouldn't he harm us just because of Kitty and Foxy? Now that I think about it, we were wrong a long time ago. We should have regretted it a long time ago. The reason why we can't figure it out is that the losses never really implicated us. We are all despicable people who have no regard for morality. Don't you know how great the difference in strength between humans and us is? Supreme Cloud attacked repeatedly and risked his life. Even though we're enemies, I don't hate him. On the contrary, I admire him." Crane Emperor agreed. "That's right. Supreme Cloud is indeed the best partner now, especially with our relationship with Kitty and Foxy. We also have a common enemy, Dragon and Phoenix. If we want revenge now, we can only cooperate with Supreme Cloud. With our combat strength alone, we won't be able to withstand a single blow. But if we cooperate with Supreme Cloud..." Tiger Emperor was a little worried. The Eagle Brothers need Supreme Cloud's cooperation, but we have to support him. Emperor Rock took a deep breath. If the Eagle Brothers are allowed to fight Dragon and Phoenix without Little Eagle around, I'm afraid the entire race will be wiped out. Are you going to watch them throw their lives away? We can't be by their side forever. None of the monarchs had any objections when he said that. The eyes of the Eagle Saints lit up. Emperor Rock was right. Although they had left the Demon Alliance, the possibility of Emperor Rock and the others truly falling out with the Demon Alliance was still 50-50. The true enemy was the Eagle race. However, after losing the Eagle Emperor, the Eagle race didn't have the qualifications to fight the Dragon and Phoenix races head-on. However, with Supreme Cloud's backing, there wouldn't be any problems. Revenge wasn't courting death. This was an extremely safe method. Emperor Rock, who had slightly recovered from his injuries, soared into the sky. He was a peak emperor of the demon race with a wingspan of millions of kilometers. At this moment he was thousands of feet in the sky and almost fell. His injuries were too severe, and the claw he had lost previously had yet to be reconstructed. He stood on the cloud for a while, but no one came. He could only ask the cloud, "Is Lord Supreme Cloud here?" I would like to meet you. At this moment he even felt a little nervous. He was a little excited. The mysterious yellow cloud supremacy was an incomparably frightening opponent. However, it was precisely because of this that he was an extremely reliable ally. It was because he valued his allies that he was so terrifying in the eyes of his enemies. Emperor Rock was even looking forward to cooperating with Yin Yang, an ally who never needs to worry about his back. We once thought that we had one, but only now do we know that we don't. This reality is truly tragic. A thought flashed across Emperor Rock's mind. Could you be? This chapter was written very nervously. Was it right to write it this way? He didn't have much confidence. Chapter 1491. Of course Yin Yang had not left. The main reason was that he could not leave even if he wanted to. There was no other reason. His injuries this time were too severe, beyond imagination and unprecedented. If it were not for the fact that he could not continue, did you think that Yin Yang would be willing to give away the oceanic suppressing staff that was already in his possession? Yin Yang had initially planned to snatch it back after the war between the two clans was over and its ownership was about to be decided. That was Yin Yang's original plan. However, Yin Yang's injuries were too severe under the Sea clan's desperate attack. As a result, the last part of the plan did not go according to the planned direction. After giving away the staff and diverting all the demons' attention, Yin Yang took the opportunity to escape. Although it was said to be a rabbit's escape, it was actually using the last bit of energy he had to support himself to transform into a cloud and wander around the battlefield. Yin Yang truly felt that his body was like a sack of rice that had been emptied. Not only was he emptied, he was also limp and weak like he had never been before. He tried his best to hide, not daring to move. It was because of this that he heard and saw everything. To be fair, the subsequent development of the matter was far beyond Yin Yang's expectations. It was completely different from what he had envisioned. According to Yin Yang's original assumption, the ownership of the oceanic suppressing staff was bound to cause internal strife between the demon race and the Sea clan. This was one of his goals. As long as there was internal strife, the demon race would not have the demon emperor or the phoenix emperor to watch over them. Facing the Sea clan that had almost turned out in full force, the demon race would be alone and difficult to gain the upper hand. If one or two of the demon race's saints died here, the two sides would develop into a deep grudge. No matter who won or lost, as humans they would naturally gain a huge advantage. Yin Yang had even planned to use countless follow-up tactics after the internal strife between the demon race and the Sea clan, such as instigating, framing, ambushing, and so on. He would make sure that the two clans would have an irreconcilable blood feud. What Yin Yang did not expect was that while he had guessed the beginning and the middle part correctly, the latter part and the last part of the game had gone off the beaten track, going further and further off the mark. It had completely deviated from Yin Yang's prediction and turned into a whole new version. And this version was 100 times more exciting and satisfying than the original script he had envisioned. The demon race and the sea race fought as he had expected, and the intensity was far beyond his imagination. Once Neptune's perishable arrow was unleashed, there was no resistance. The demon race suffered heavy casualties in an instant, and the Eagle Emperor, who was the emperor of the race, had even died in battle. It was tragic and heart-wrenching, but Yin Yang was happy to see it happen. It was not that Yin Yang was black-hearted, they were enemies. If it were not for the death of a demonic expert like the Falcon Emperor, how could the grudge between them not be resolved? But from then on, things started to change. Initially, Yin Yang had thought that the death of the Falcon Sovereign would cause Sea Emperor to be severely injured. Emperor Demon and Emperor Phoenix would be arriving soon. Even if Emperor Rock and the others were strangely injured and could not move, they would not be able to fight anymore. However, with the arrival of the Dragon and Phoenix Sovereigns, how could Yin Yang not strike out in anger when he saw the casualties on the ground and the death of the Falcon Sovereign? If that was the case, it would be impossible for the two sides to not become mortal enemies. However, the subsequent development of the situation was once again beyond Yin Yang's expectations. The arrival of Emperor Demon and Emperor Phoenix did not anger the Sea clan and start a massacre, nor did they actively rescue Emperor Tiger, Emperor Rock, and the other demon sovereigns. What the demon sovereign did was actually heal Sea Emperor. Healing Sea Emperor who had killed his brothers and countless subordinates. Based on this incident alone, Yin Yang, who had always believed in his brotherhood, felt disbelief at first, followed by disbelief and then shock. And then he remembered a phrase, a thing. His heart was bitterly disappointed. The demon sovereign's actions would definitely chill the hearts of the other sovereigns. What was left of the demon sovereign who had lost his brotherhood and the hearts of the demons? Betrayal, of course. Before the demon sovereign and Phoenix sovereign left, The Phoenix Sovereign's meaningful glance made Yun Yang's heart beat like a drum. A thought that would never have occurred to Yun Yang was growing bit by bit. Yun Yang had never doubted his brothers. Whether it was the brothers of the Nine Supremes in the past or the current Shi Wuchen and Chen Duo of the Palace of Nine Supremes, they all valued brotherhood more. In the past, the Nine Supremes had helped the kings of the underworld mostly because of this reason. Everyone shared the same thought. Therefore, when the Fox Emperor and Cat Sovereign treated the Demon Sovereign and the Demon Sovereign, Yun Yang had never taken the initiative to persuade the two sovereigns to turn against the demon race and become enemies with the Demon Sovereign, even if this was more in line with Yun Yang's interests. However, he would not do so. That was why the demonic emperor's actions today were so out of Yun Yang's expectations that he dared not believe it. Yun Yang heard the discussion of Emperor Rock and the others with his own ears, as well as the decision of the various races to withdraw from the Demon League. However, he still did not act rashly. On one hand it was because his injuries were too severe, but on the other hand it was because the word, brother, meant a lot to Yun Yang. Perhaps if he went down, it would actually be a trap and he would probably fall here, his body and Dao disappearing. After all, his injuries were too severe. Therefore, although Emperor Rock called out repeatedly, Yun Yang did not appear. If the matter was really promising, there was no hurry. Supreme Cloud, I know you're here. Please show yourself. Emperor Rock appeared very calm. Even though he was heavily injured, he could not stand steadily in the air. He swayed unsteadily as he said in a deep voice, "You were nearby, so you saw everything that happened today. Under your schemes, my brothers suffered heavy casualties. We are enemies, so I am not in the position to blame you. However, it is all fate and fate. However, in terms of position, it's only right for you to be here. However, the actions of the Demon Emperor have caused us to feel extremely disappointed. After this cooperation, my brothers, Tiger, Leopard, and I will hide in the forest forever and never come out again. We have decided not to participate in the war between the demon race and the bound of universe. However, if we want to vent our anger, it's not only for ourselves but mainly for the fallen Eagle Sovereign. You can decide whether to cooperate or not." Yun Yang still did not say a word, as if he was long gone. Emperor Rock sighed. "I know you have concerns and your injuries are not light. You should be careful. We'll wait for your reply on the mountain below. We'll only wait for 4 hours. In 4 hours, the sages of the Dragon and Phoenix clans should arrive." With that said, Emperor Rock descended. The moment he landed, he staggered and sat on a rock, grimacing in pain. "How is it?" Tiger Emperor asked. "As expected." Supreme Cloud didn't reply immediately, Emperor Rock said. "He was also heavily injured this time. It's not surprising that he has concerns. Let's wait a while." The Demon Sovereigns nodded silently. All the experts of the demon race silently took out many treasures from their spatial rings and stuffed them into their mouths to replenish their depleted demonic energy. Yun Yang, who had been hovering in the sky, was not only watching what was happening below, but he was also healing his injuries as quickly as possible. Although he had become the secondary enemy at this point in time, be it the Dragon Emperor, the Phoenix Emperor, the Sea Emperor, or even Emperor Peng and the other demon sovereigns below, they would all treat him as their top priority. It was absolutely necessary for him to recover from his injuries and recover to his peak state as soon as possible. Although the injuries Yun Yang had suffered this time were more severe than before, his recovery speed was much faster than Emperor Rock and the others. Other than the severe injuries of Tiger Emperor and the others, the main reason was the subsequent effects of the Arrow of Nirvana. Although Tiger Emperor and the others' external injuries had improved greatly under the help of the Dragon and Phoenix Sovereigns Primordial Dragon and Phoenix Fire, their demonic energy had not recovered at all. As a result, when the 4 hours mentioned by Emperor Rock were almost over, Yun Yang had already recovered 30 to 40% of his cultivation base. On the other hand, the defeated troops below only looked slightly better, and their demonic energy was still at the bottom. However, none of the sovereigns left. They had been quietly healing on the spot, obviously waiting for Yun Yang's reply. Yun Yang sensed carefully and confirmed that there was no aura of the Demon Sovereigns and Phoenix Sovereigns within a radius of 10,000 miles. As for Sea Sovereign, Yun Yang did not believe that Emperor Rock and the others would collude with Sea Sovereign, a mortal enemy, to plot against him. According to the current state of Emperor Rock and the others, if Yun Yang had any evil intentions, the only outcome would be for him to come down and capture all the experts of the demon race in one fell swoop. Therefore, Emperor Rock and the others were taking a huge risk here. They were betting their lives on a bet that they would definitely lose. It was precisely because of this that Yun Yang was willing to take the gamble. Even if the demon race was suffering from internal strife, the human race was still weak. If they had such an additional group of allies, it would be akin to a windfall from the sky. If it was done properly, not only would it greatly increase the human race's chances of winning, but it would also reverse the situation and turn the tables on both sides. It's almost been 4 hours. Could Supreme Cloud have already left? Tiger's sovereign looked at Emperor Rock. Emperor Rock's expression was dark, but he was actually thinking, could I have guessed wrongly? Has Supreme Cloud really left? The Eagle Race's saints also looked disappointed. Without Yun Yang's help, the Eagle Race's counterattack plan would have no chance of success. It would be akin to a moth flying into a flame, courting their own destruction. Just as the demons were thinking about it, a chuckle suddenly rang out. The demons immediately looked in the direction of the sound. Behind them, on the edge of the cliff, a familiar figure in purple stood against the wind. The newcomer had a handsome face and a tall figure. It was the Heaven and Earth Supreme Cloud, looking over with a smile. Your Majesty Emperor Rock, Your Majesty Tiger Sovereign. Yun Yang said apologetically, I was seriously injured just now and found it difficult to move. I didn't dare come down rashly. Please forgive me. With Yun Yang's words, the demons felt that he was being honest. Even though everyone was seriously injured, they still had the advantage in numbers. It would be strange if Yun Yang didn't have such concerns. That's only right. Emperor Rock laughed, feeling relieved. Lord Supreme Cloud, do you have any thoughts on my suggestion? Yun Yang smiled faintly and said, cooperation is naturally good. However, with our current condition, it's obviously not a good time to cooperate. Speaking of which, at least half of everyone's current condition should be attributed to me, Yun Yang said. I'll try to help everyone recover first before we talk about anything else. Help us recover? How arrogant. How do you plan to help us recover? Even the Phoenix Monarch's Nirvana Life Force and the Dragon Monarch's Dragon Origin Force are merely stabilizing our injuries and preserving our lives. We'll be fine. You're going to use the same trick from that day and use some sort of smokescreen to deceive us. With our current physical condition, we won't be able to withstand the medicinal pills that you casually took out. Before the emperors could react, Yun Yang waved his hand abruptly and a barrier enveloped all the demonic beasts within it. Then waves of extremely pure innate spiritual qi slowly emerged from within the huge barrier and gushed out like a fountain. With such a huge amount of pure innate energy flowing into their bodies, all the demons instantly felt refreshed, and every single pore on their body was brimming with life force. Every inch of their skin seemed to be in joy, so comfortable that they were almost trembling. Even every strand of hair seemed to feel the extreme comfort. Endless pure spiritual qi poured into their bodies in a way that resisted the influence of the arrow of perishment. The main reason why the arrow of perishment was so domineering was that the victim could no longer absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth for their own use. Once a cultivator was isolated from the spiritual qi of heaven and earth, in addition to being severely injured, it was impossible for them to recover. Although the Phoenix Sovereign's Nirvana Flame and the Dragon Sovereign's Primordial Draconic Force had greatly healed and even nourished the Tiger Sovereign and the others' physical bodies and greatly improved their injuries, they had made up for the fact that the physical bodies related to the arrow of perishment could not absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. In fact, this was also the main reason why the arrow of perishment was so difficult to heal. It required countless efforts to wear it down bit by bit before it could be recovered. Yun Yang had been observing from the side for a long time. It was because he had seen through this that he had set up such a sealed environment to release pure innate spiritual qi, forcefully resisting the influence of the arrow of perishment and infusing the spiritual qi into the demons' bodies. In this way, the Tiger Sovereign and the others could use the massive amount of innate spiritual qi to wear down the influence of the arrow of perishment bit by bit and achieve a true healing effect. A moment later, the saint rulers of the demonic race, who were experienced and knowledgeable, lifted their heads to look at Yun Yang in shock as they felt the massive amount of pure spiritual qi flowing into their bodies. It was already a great feat for Yun Yang to be able to mobilize a massive amount of spiritual qi to help them heal their injuries with targeted methods. However, what shocked the demonic emperors even more was, what kind of spiritual qi was this? Even if it was innate spiritual qi, it did not have the effect that they were feeling now, did it not? Not only was the spiritual qi extremely pure, it actually contained a dense purple qi. Upon closer inspection, the purple qi actually contained traces of Taoist rhyme. This Taoist rhyme had further worn down the arcane seal of the arrow of perishment, allowing more and more spiritual qi to flow into their bodies to repair their dantian and repair their meridians. It had not been long since the spiritual qi had nourished their physical bodies, but they already felt exceptionally comfortable. Although their injuries had not healed much and their demonic energy had not recovered much, It was no different from seeing the hope of a complete recovery. This was an immediate effect, and it was conceivable that they would recover in the future. As long as Yun-Yang was willing to help, they could recover completely within a few days. This was something that they dared not even imagine or wish for. However, it had become a reality that was close at hand. The saint rulers of the demonic race were in high spirits. Their gazes towards Yun-Yang were glowing, and even their smiles were exceptionally friendly. After all, no one was willing to cultivate for 10,000 years just to recover. Moreover, it was still unknown whether or not they could really recover to their full state after 10,000 years of training. Yun-Yang looked amicable as he continued to release spiritual qi. At the same time, he felt the demon's increasingly friendly attitude, and he was overjoyed. It looked like there was a chance. His observation for so long was not in vain. He had also used the influence of the art of sealing heaven as a reference, which allowed him to execute a targeted strategy at this moment. Using the spiritual qi in his deific consciousness space and a relatively sealed space, he allowed the demons to be passively filled with spiritual qi and cleanse their meridians. As expected, it could eliminate the effect of the arrow of perishment. In addition, he could at least save a lot of qi of vitality. In order to deal with Dongfang Haoren and the other old geezers, he had used up a lot of qi of vitality. If it was not necessary, it was better to reduce the consumption. In less than an hour, the originally exhausted demons were all glowing with radiance. They all felt that their strength had actually recovered by more than 5%. This was no longer a miracle but a divine miracle. With the recovery of their strength, it was no longer difficult to gather demonic energy. More importantly, under the continuous state of the mystical spiritual qi, the shackles of the arrow of perishment had mostly disappeared. As long as they continued at this pace, they would be able to recover within a few years, even without Yun-Yang's mystical spiritual qi. Whether it was the cultivation of demonic energy or spiritual source, the greatest fear was nothing more than the depletion of one's strength and being sealed by a mystical skill. The art of sealing heaven and the arrow of perishment were the same. However, the effect of the arrow of perishment was one step further, sealing the physical body and demonic source. The three were carried out simultaneously and it was extremely vicious. However, it was also because of this that it could threaten and even kill saint-level masters. Now that the demons' dried-up dantians had recovered half of their demonic energy and the seal had been mostly broken, it was equivalent to water with roots. And since there was a root and a spring, a little would naturally become a lot. Sooner or later, it would be able to fill up to form a well, overflow to form a lake, and the lake would become a sea. And this process would only get faster and faster. Your Majesty Emperor Rock, how is your recovery now? Yun-Yang asked. I've already recovered 10% of my strength. Emperor Rock was naturally grateful and thanked him profusely. Thank you, Lord Supreme Cloud, for your help. Since everyone has improved greatly, shall we change places to discuss the details of our cooperation? Yun-Yang said, there's demonic qi rising from afar. It should be the experts of the dragon and phoenix races. That should be the case. Emperor Rock frowned and said, where shall we talk then? This was a place where negotiations were conducted with great care. Is it on your side? Or on my side? Generally speaking, whoever was on the side represented the stronger party in the negotiation and could often take the lead in the negotiation. Emperor Rock was undoubtedly hesitant. This was because Emperor Rock was unwilling to go to Yun-Yang's Fox Emperor city from the bottom of his heart. The Falcon Emperor had just perished, so it was inevitable that he would be saddened when he thought of the Fox Emperor and feline ancestor. In addition, he had many concerns in his heart. No matter what, Yun-Yang had a connection with the Fox Emperor, so everything was easier to negotiate. However, if he were to face Dongfang Haoren or even be harbored evil intentions by Dongfang Haoren and the others, he would not even be able to escape. However, Yun-Yang was afraid that he would not be at ease if he were to return to his lair or find another place for the demon race. Seeing this, Yun-Yang was even more certain. The fact that the demon race's experts were worried about this undoubtedly proved how important this cooperation was to them. Everyone here is the Fox Emperor's brothers. Coincidentally, so am I. Then we're family. Yun-Yang smiled. I wonder which emperor's territory is closer to here. Let's go there to talk. It's the cheapest way. Everyone's time is precious. Let's delay as little as possible. Emperor Rock, who had heard the word brother and Fox Emperor, immediately looked a little embarrassed. Look at how generous he is. Look at us. We are so petty. He said with a red face, why don't we go to the Wolf Emperor's territory? Cough, cough, cough. He glared at his brothers sternly. Don't embarrass yourself later. All the emperors lowered their heads and coughed, feeling a little ashamed. "I'll bring you guys to fly. Please point me in a direction, Your Majesty, Wolf Emperor," Yunyang said with a smile when he felt that he had recovered 50% of his cultivation base. "All right." With a shake of his body, Yunyang transformed into Emperor Rock's appearance. He swept up a monstrous demonic wind and carried Emperor Rock and the other 70-odd experts of the demon race. They flew over the sea with a whistling sound. Emperor Rock and the others were dumbfounded again. This was because Yunyang had transformed into Emperor Rock. No matter how hard the demons tried to detect him, they could not sense anything unusual. It was as if Emperor Rock's true body had appeared. All of them sighed inwardly. It was no wonder that no demons noticed Yunyang when he was a saint venerable back then. It turned out that he did have the capital to do so. What could they do? Emperor Rock's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. Am I really not looking in the mirror? The wind and clouds howled in the distance. A group of silver dragons and a group of golden dragons flew over and met Yunyang and the others. All the experts of the dragon race stood still at the same time and bowed. "Greetings, Your Majesty Emperor Rock." Yunyang ignored them and snorted coldly. He flew away, leaving the group of experts of the dragon race there and looking at each other. It had to be said that the saints of the demon race felt a sense of relief. This bunch of grandsons should be treated like this. *T. All the marine creatures that emerged from the sea were immediately suppressed by Yunyang the moment they popped their heads out of the water. Along the way, the entire sea was filled with white bellies. Including ordinary cultivators, at least millions of marine creatures had been killed. The corpses on the surface of the sea were so white that one couldn't see the end of them. The demon sages gritted their teeth, their faces filled with hatred. "Damn it, I should have slaughtered them like this. Why didn't I do it earlier? Killing them was still too light, it was better to kill them all." Behind him, a group of sea race experts jumped out and cursed. "Since we've already formed an alliance, the grudge between us has been resolved. Why did you suddenly attack us? Emperor Rock, you are too inhumane." Yunyang laughed maniacally, ignoring him and leaving at a leisurely pace. It was obvious that Wu Yan only had one thing in mind: come and chase me if you can. None of the sea race experts chased after them, but all of them were gritting their teeth, almost bursting with anger. There were 6,000 words in this chapter, making up for yesterday's loss. Brothers, please don't blame me. Amp GT. Chapter 1493. After another 2 days and 1 night, Yunyang tore the space apart and returned to Fox Emperor City. He saw Dongfang Haoren and the rest who were almost sick from anxiety. "Where did you go, kid? Why did you take so long this time?" "There was a huge battle the day before yesterday." "Did you do it?" "Yes." "Why did it cause such a huge commotion?" "We didn't dare to go near. I felt an extremely terrifying force. It was a force that could kill a saint." "Who did it? Was it the Phoenix Emperor or the Demon Emperor? Was it directed at you?" "Thank goodness you came back safe and sound. We almost died of anxiety." Shengguan Lingxiu and Ji Lingxi expressed their dissatisfaction as well. "Why didn't you bring us along? There was no news at all. We were worried about you. If it wasn't for the few old men dragging us along and not letting us go, we would have gone long ago." All in all, it was a wave of condemnation that rendered Yunyang speechless. In spite of this, Yunyang was not in a hurry at all. He waited for the chatter to die down before he snorted and sat in his chair. He even crossed his legs and looked pleased with himself. "I haven't done much these past few days. At most, I've only done 2 things. The first thing he did was to steal the sea-suppressing divine scepter from the sea and give it to the demon race. You said that the demon race and the sea race are one big family, but I don't know what they were thinking. Just for a stick they really went all out. In short, the demon race and the sea race fought over the divine scepter, and both sides suffered heavy casualties. The demon race lost many of their top forces, the Eagle King even fell, and the Sea Emperor also paid a heavy price. The terrifying power that you sensed was from the Sea Emperor. But don't worry, this move of his can only be used once, and he won't be able to use it again for the rest of his life. Moreover, after this battle, his battle strength is already set in stone, and he is no longer a threat." Dongfang Haoren and the rest's mouths turned into duck eggs and did not close for a long time. As for the second matter, it's even simpler. It's about. I've brought a few more allies to the human tribe. Not too many, just 7 pinnacle sages and more than 60 sages of different levels. That's about it. You must be surprised. Shiman Fanfu was speechless. Python 9's mouth gaped open. After a long while he said, You must be joking, right? Even the entire Shenhuang human race in Tianfa Holy Land don't have so many sages. Where did you get them from? That was impossible. This wasn't a pleasant surprise at all. Instead, it was horrifying or perhaps suspicious. Yunyang chuckled and slowly recounted the entire incident to the group. A long time after Yunyang had finished speaking, no one made a sound. After another 15 minutes of silence, Meng Jiu finally let out a desolate sigh and said, "This matter is very bizarre and shocking. However, what surprised me the most is that the Phoenix Emperor actually did not stop him. With his intelligence, he should not have failed to consider this." Dongfang Haoran and the other 3 palace lords did not make a sound, obviously deep in thought. Meng Jiu said, "Based on my understanding of the Phoenix Emperor, even if he can't solve this matter perfectly, he can at least resolve the resentment in the hearts of Emperor Rock and the others. This is something he can do and should do. He can see the disappointment in Emperor Rock and the others, and the impact of this matter is so great that it can affect the entire demon race. How could he not deal with it actively? How could he be so careless?" Yunyang frowned when he heard that. Indeed, he had been so excited because the surprise had come too abruptly and the development of the matter had been too ideal. All he could think about was the almost bursting sense of accomplishment, so he had really neglected this point. Based on Yunyang's understanding of the Phoenix Emperor from their past encounters, all of this should not have happened no matter what. Even if it was for the sake of the bigger picture to not kill or even save Sea King, even if it was Demon Emperor Chen Gang who made the decision and it was difficult for the Phoenix Emperor to speak up, even with the huge gain of the divine oceanic suppressing needle, and even considering the fact that Emperor Rock and the others were severely injured and had no influence on the subsequent battle, the Phoenix Emperor's action of ignoring the emotional turmoil of Emperor Rock and the others was still extremely strange. From the release of Nirvana vitality at the beginning, to the indifferent words of comfort, and then leaving with the Demon Emperor, this situation was already very strange, too abnormal. If the Phoenix Emperor's intelligence and emotional quotient were only this, how could he enjoy the title of the wisest person in the demon realm? Would he really be so unwise? Would he only care about the benefits in front of him and ignore the Demon League's collapse? How could he not notice and not care about the possibility of Emperor Rock and the others betraying him? Yunyang frowned and asked himself again and again in his heart. Now that he thought about it, there were too many strange things that were completely illogical. Especially at the end, when he left with the Demon Emperor, it did not seem like he was accompanying him at all. Instead, it seemed like he was monitoring his departure. Logically speaking, the 2 rulers of the Demon League should have done the most at that time. One should have returned to preside over the overall situation, while the other had to stay behind to settle down and comfort Emperor Rock and the others. At the very least, the resentment had to be eliminated. With the Phoenix Emperor's intelligence, he would definitely have considered this. However, the Phoenix Emperor did not do so. Not only did he not do so, but he also allowed it to develop. Instead, he was suspected of adding fuel to the fire. The Demon Emperor is also the Dragon Emperor. This is a fellow who is blinded by power. Everything he does is for benefits. Yes, it should be his own interests that are his first priority. He's also stubborn and self-opinionated. To put it nicely, he's dictatorial and domineering. To put it bluntly, he's short-sighted. He's only suitable to be a martial world hero, but he's not suitable to be the Demon League's top king at all. Impulsive, violent, disregarding the consequences. He only sees what's in front of him. He's even heartless and heartless. He doesn't have the demeanor of a king. It's impossible for the Phoenix Emperor not to see these flaws. If he sincerely wanted to assist the Demon Emperor, the Phoenix Emperor should have wiped up everything that the Demon Emperor had done. Besides, the Phoenix Emperor undoubtedly has the ability and prestige to do so. As Yunyang thought about it, he asked himself and mumbled to himself, but he never did that. He only stood firmly on the Demon Emperor's side. Then he allowed the Demon Emperor to do whatever he wanted. After that, he reconciled the matter and stabilized it. From the time the Demon League sovereigns became sworn brothers, they roamed together, did things together, until the brothers separated and returned to their respective tribes. Then many things happened in between. A few auxiliary tribes that weren't very important were destroyed, until the Nine Lives Cat incident 10,000 years ago. Based on what I know about the Nine Lives Cat's past, if the Phoenix Emperor wanted to, he clearly had the ability to stop it. In fact, the tragedy wouldn't have happened at all, but he didn't. Then, the matter of the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor. The Phoenix Emperor knew everything about it, but he still didn't do anything. The demon race's acknowledged 3 wise men include the Phoenix Emperor, the Fox Emperor, and the Cat Ancestors by Bai Yi mysteriously died in the hands of the demon crown prince, causing the demon emperor and the cat ancestor to fall out. Then, the blood soul mountain of the fox emperor's lineage was marginalized, and finally the fox clan was almost annihilated. Was this premeditated? A few days ago, the divine ocean staff's sudden appearance. The Phoenix Emperor was the first to propose to snatch it. But in reality, he didn't do anything. However, Emperor Rock and the others were all on the side and saw the Phoenix Emperor's attitude. This seems to be the most important reason for the war the day before yesterday. Then, when the sovereigns of the various clans were all severely injured, the Phoenix Emperor's behavior was even stranger. Yun Yang sucked in a long breath and said, "The Phoenix Emperor most likely has an important plan. And he's definitely not of one mind with the Demon Emperor. But it's hard to say why he did it." Beigong Lioli said, "Do you think he did it for the position of the demon race's leader? The Phoenix Emperor wanted to usurp the throne?" Everyone's eyes lit up. Yun Yang shook his head. "I don't think that's the case. If he wanted to usurp the throne, he would have had too many chances. With his ability and prestige, he could have done it long ago." The group was utterly confused. Then what was the Phoenix Emperor's purpose? No matter how they thought about it, there was no conclusion to speak of. After all, Yun Yang, who understood the Phoenix Emperor the most among them, only had a superficial understanding of him. There were no clues to be found. The only thing they could be sure of was that the Phoenix Emperor's actions must have a deeper meaning. However, at this stage they could only conclude it as an unsolved mystery. They knew that the Phoenix Emperor had an ulterior motive, but they did not know what it was, so it was difficult to think of a way to deal with it. The Phoenix Emperor's current target is still at the level of the Demon Race and Sea Clan. It hasn't threatened the human race yet. Besides, as of now, it's only beneficial to the human race, so we don't have to think too much about it for now. If the Phoenix Emperor has ulterior motives, the first to bear the brunt will be the demon race itself. We're overthinking it now, it's too much of a worry. Yun Yang paused and said, "At least based on the current situation, it's much more advantageous for us. Our chances of winning have increased greatly. What we should carefully consider now is the conditions of the demon race's emperors. The conditions that Emperor Rock and the others raised are rather lenient and not difficult. This is because the alliance is only limited to humans and eagles. The status of both sides is similar to the fox race, cat race and human race. They are all dominated by humans. As for Emperor Rock and the others, they'll secretly help the eagle race. This means that on the surface they'll still be enemies with us. However, they'll help the eagle race in all their operations. Even if both sides have to fight, they won't kill them." Yun Yang said, "Other than the concerns of Emperor Rock and the others, this is mostly because of me. Just like the Fox Emperor and the Cat Emperor, if it's not necessary, they won't take the initiative to bear the reputation of betrayal. This is already very good." Dongfang Haoren praised repeatedly, agreeing with Yun Yang's actions. Yun Yang had always been considerate for Emperor Rock and the others and had even resolved their biggest worry. He had always given them leeway. How could Emperor Rock and the others not return the favor? They would naturally show goodwill to the human race in the future. Forcing oneself to do something and doing one's best were two completely different attitudes, as well as completely different combat strength. If that's the case, it's promising. Shimen Fengfu also felt relieved. Eagle, rock, tiger, leopard, wolf, bear, crane, and eagle could be said to be the strongest combat race in the demon race after the dragon race and phoenix race. Once these 8 races were gone, only the dragon race and phoenix race were left, followed by the snake race, ox race, monkey race, elephant race, horse race, dog race and so on. Yes, there was also the sea race which had just returned, but their strength was greatly reduced. At this point, it could be said that the demon race's overall strength had been cut in half. How could the 4 sovereigns not be overjoyed? The 4 of them felt that the pressure had lessened. Everyone knew that Emperor Rock and the others' alliance with the eagle race in name was just a smokescreen. The hatred between the eagle race and the sea race, as well as the dragon race and phoenix race, was as deep as the sea. They could not live under the same sky, so how could they not think of revenge? As long as they took revenge, they would go to the extreme. As long as the war started, Emperor Rock and the others would definitely not stand by and watch. What was the difference between them and participating in the war? In this way, our chances of victory have more than doubled. Everyone was full of praises. The only regret is that the overall situation is still disadvantageous to me. With the return of the sea race, the follow-up of the demon race's apocalypse strategy will be even smoother. Yin Yang felt a little regretful. That's something that can't be helped. You've already done the best you could at that time. It's wishful thinking to ask for more. Python 9 asked, right, how long will it take for Emperor Rock and the others to fully recover their strength? This is also a key. See, Emperor's arrow of perishment is powerful, killing countless experts with a single strike. Will it take time for the injured Tiger Emperor and the others to heal? Yunyang thought about it and said, when I met with Emperor Rock and the others, I used my unique mystic art to try and help them heal. The effect was very good and they showed great improvement. The treatment that originally needed thousands of years to nearly 10,000 years has been greatly shortened. Even if they recover completely, as long as I help, they will only need half a month at most. However, the apocalypse strategy is imminent, so I'm afraid we won't be able to make it in time. If we need their help, they should be able to recover about 60% of their strength. Saint experts with incomplete combat strength can't be of much use. Instead, they'll be in danger of dying. I don't think they'll help. Why don't we hold them off for a few days on our own? About 6 days after the apocalypse strategy, they'll be able to recover fully. When that time comes, it'll be a dream. The group was silent, but they knew that Yun Yang's words made sense. After all, they were not of the same race and had different intentions. If they were in their shoes, they would not risk their lives to fight for another race. At least, they would only do so if they were in perfect condition. Now, there were only 9 days left before the apocalypse strategy's activation. Yin Yang sighed. This is already the best outcome. Actually, we've already released a lot of the ocean's accumulated water during this period of time. It's much lower than the original sea level. However, with the return of the Sea Clan, I don't know if there will be other variables. After all, they're still the best at playing with the ocean. Shiman Fafu chuckled bitterly. This is very likely to happen. No, it's a situation that will definitely happen. The group could not help but chuckle bitterly. Once the tide rose, the monstrous waves would rise. With the driving force of an expert in controlling water, no one dared to underestimate the power of the ocean. It's hard for the plan to work now. You should know that there's not much left at the location of the flood discharge point. Even if we destroy it, there won't be much left. Yin Yang spread his arms. The amount of water there only reaches the foot of the mountain. Even if it's all gone, how much water can there be? On the other hand, how much water can be stored in these 9 heavens? That's true. Dong Fenghaoren frowned. Yin Yang was frowning as well. He had asked everyone not to think about the Phoenix Emperor, but he was still worried. He had a feeling that things were not as simple as they seemed. Now, however, everything that could be done had been done. All that was left was to wait for the great battle. I don't care anymore, Yin Yang frowned. I'll try to destroy the mountains by the sea later. Destroy as much as I can. As he spoke, he called out to Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu, and the 3 of them left together. On the surface of the ocean, countless members of the Sea Clan were laboriously moving mountains from afar to fill the gaps. 3 waves of extreme aura suddenly approached from afar, descending upon them. Chapter 1494. The saint experts of the Dragon Clan and Phoenix Clan who were guarding the peak lifted their heads and flew into the air, charging towards the imposing aura. The sudden arrival of the 3 powerful auras caused the arrogant saint experts of the Dragon Clan and Phoenix Clan to vanish into thin air. Instead, they felt chills running down their spines. The aura? It was as if Her Majesty the Demon Emperor and Her Majesty the Phoenix Sovereign had arrived together with a murderous aura. That was the insufferably abundant aura of an expert at the peak of this world, insufferably arrogant and overflowing with ferocious might. Behind these 3 auras, there were more than a dozen powerful auras, and behind them, was there a troop? Just as Yun Yang and his companions left, Dong Fenghaoren and the others gathered and gave chase, along with the 300 personal guards left behind by the Fox Sovereign as reinforcements. Although they were few in number, it felt rather majestic at this juncture. After all, when Supreme Cloud or the human race had attacked in the past, it had only been 3 to 5 pinnacle powerhouses attacking together, or, at most, a dozen of them. They would leave after a round of fighting. There had never been such a large group of people swarming in like a swarm of bees, as if they were attacking en masse. A dragon's roar could be heard as the leading golden dragon elder hollered, "Is this Sir Bound of Universe Supreme Cloud in front of us? The strategy of annihilation is about to be activated and the ultimate battle between the pinnacle of the 2 races is upon us. Sir, you are not waiting for the great battle on the other side of the Bound of Universe, but have come here to create trouble. Are you seeking your own death?" What answered him was a sharp saber light that seemed to be able to split the sky in half. Yun Yang's saber aura was ferocious and swift. The golden dragon elder of the Dragon Clan, who was the first to bear the brunt of the attack, could not avoid it in time and could only muster all his strength to block it. Clang. With a deafening boom, the elder of the Golden Dragon, who was a high-level saint, was struck by Yun Yang's saber until his dragon scales were scattered. The scepter in his hand was broken, and a gash that was several feet long was added to his body. He retreated like a cannonball and crashed into the mountain behind him. Looking at it, it was as if he had carved a deep hole in the mountain with his body. The few golden dragons at the back were scared out of their wits when they saw this. They turned around and returned to the formation in the sky, not daring to challenge Yun Yang at all. Even the Golden Dragon Elder, who was known for his invincible defense, was cut down with a single slash. If we go up, wouldn't we be overestimating ourselves? In front of him, the sea of clouds suddenly parted. A purple-clad silhouette came like a gust of wind. The newcomer wielded a long saber and was dressed in an elegant purple robe. On the left was Ji Lingxi, who was clad in red, while on the right was Shangguan Lingxiu, who was clad in white. They looked like a celestial couple, like deities who had descended from the heavens. "Get lost!" Yun Yang hollered. "Those who block our way shall be killed without mercy." Before his voice trailed off, he charged straight toward the experts of the Dragon and Phoenix clans. Through the fight just now, Yun Yang was certain that the experts of the Dragon and Phoenix clans that he was facing now were not ordinary people. They were the elites of the two clans and the backbone of their forces, but their combat prowess was incomparable to the likes of Emperor Rock and Emperor Tiger. Even the Golden Dragon Elder, the strongest among them, had been defeated by a single slash of his saber. The rest of them were even more mediocre and insignificant. This was an opportunity to further reduce the combat power of the demon race's higher-ups. Faced with Yun Yang's extreme charge, even if the Dragon and Phoenix clans had the thought of evading, they could not carry it out in time. Yun Yang had already crashed into the formation. As the saber light shone brightly, it turned into a 1,000-foot-long saber. The saber's aura swung and fell like thunder. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The dozen or so experts of the Dragon and Phoenix clans who were caught in the saber energy, force and light did not die on the spot, but they could not help but lose their balance from the recoil. They retreated hastily, their faces pale and their will to fight diminished. Supreme Cloud's cultivation base was truly terrifying. In spite of this, Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu, who had come with Yun Yang, were already at the pinnacle of Saint Realm. Complemented by their mystical light that protected them, they rampaged among the experts of the two clans, attacking without defending themselves. The result of the battle was even worse than Yun Yang's. The divine light that protected them was the pinnacle of this world. As long as they did not encounter the full-force attacks of the pinnacle experts like the Demon Emperor, Phoenix Emperor, or Ocean Emperor, there was nothing they could do. As for the people in front of them, they were even more helpless. They could not hurt them no matter what. For a moment, dragon scales and phoenix feathers flew together, the blood of the dragons and phoenixes the same color. Seeing the difference in their combat power, the three of them were no longer in a hurry to wreak havoc. Instead, they continued to attack the dragons and phoenixes, causing the experts of the Dragon and Phoenix clans to groan incessantly. It was difficult to kill a saint-level cultivator, but if they were continuously injured by someone with a higher cultivation base than them, their life force would be depleted. Once they were restrained by Yun Yang when they were at their weakest, it was not uncommon for them to perish. What was more, Yun Yang had already killed 5 saint-level cultivators in an instant. It was a well-known feat that would shock anyone who heard of it. Even though the 5 saint-level demons that Yun Yang had killed were beginner-level saints, far from the high-level experts of the Dragon and Phoenix clans, it was still frightening. In order to protect themselves, they were determined to counterattack. After all, the best defense was to attack. They prevented Yun Yang and his companions from retaliating, so naturally they could not threaten their own lives. In spite of this, the three of them were still at ease under the siege of 70 to 80 experts from the Dragon and Phoenix clans. Occasionally they would counterattack, causing the formation of the Dragon and Phoenix clans to fall into disarray. Wherever Yun Yang charged, the Dragon and Phoenix clans would avoid him, not daring to put in any effort to resist. The analogy of a tiger charging into a flock of sheep was as apt as a textbook example. By the time Dongfang Haoran and the others arrived, Yun Yang had already charged back and forth a few times. He had even performed Saber Truth, Destiny Blade 3 times, and the results were glorious as well. More than 30 saint-level experts were injured all over, spitting blood as they retreated. Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu attacked with all their might, but their defensive mystical light was the main reason why they achieved the most results. Their mystical light had never been limited to defense, but it was also extremely powerful. Cultivators below the level of saints would die upon contact, while saint-level cultivators would still have to pay a considerable price. Therefore, most of the true results of their attack came from the experts of the Dragon and Phoenix clans injuring themselves, causing many high-level saints to be severely injured and almost fall to the ground. After a round of attack, the three of them retreated from the battlefield and went to destroy the mountain below. After all, destroying the waterway's flow was their stated goal. Dongfang Haoren and the others filled in immediately. In terms of headcount alone, they were many times more powerful than before. Naturally, their reputation grew even more. In spite of this, the Dragon and Phoenix clans' saints heaved a sigh of relief. It was true that Dongfang and the others were more powerful in terms of overall combat prowess, but for some reason the experts of the Dragon and Phoenix races felt that the Phoenix race and the Dragon race were more powerful than Dongfang and the others. He did not want to face Yun Yang's family of three lunatics. Moreover, they were three high combat maniacs that could not be killed or abandoned. In fact, it was impossible for him to even injure the other party. If he were to force himself to attack, he would only end up injuring himself. How were they supposed to fight? Yun Yang, Ji Lingxi, and Shengguan Lingxiu made a big round before they gathered the Fox Emperor's 300 personal guards and charged towards the beach. His target, Big Mountain. All the saint experts of the Dragon and Phoenix races were being held back by Dongfang Haoren and the others, none of them coming back to help. In fact, even if they had seen it and had the time to pull themselves away, even knowing Yun Yang's purpose, they had pretended not to see or hear it. I'm not going to hell. Whoever wants to go can go. Anyway, I'm not going. A group of sea race experts rushed up to stop them. Unfortunately, their combat strength was not on the same level at all. After a round of confrontation between the three of them, they were all easily killed. You have 2 hours. Yun Yang ordered, destroy all the mountains by the coast within sight. Leave immediately when the time is up. No one is allowed to delay. Yes. The 300 personal guards acknowledged the order. Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu each led a team and sped forward. Yun Yang stood alone in midair, monitoring the movement of the outer sea. As long as the sea race dared to show themselves, Yun Yang would suppress them mercilessly. He was decisive in his killing and merciless in his attacks. After all, Sea King was severely injured now. Other than Sea King, Yun Yang was unrivaled in the sea race. He had no qualms about killing anyone who came. It would be best if Sea King came personally. Sea King, whose combat strength was unparalleled, would only be sending himself to his death. After waiting for a while, Yun Yang decided to take the initiative to attack when he saw that there were no reinforcements from the sea tribes. He flew out swiftly, covering tens of thousands of feet in a single leap. Each time he flew, hundreds of thousands of marine creatures would perish in the water. The air of karma surged once more. The surface of the sea was filled with white bellies again. Dongfang Haoren and the others were speechless. Yun Yang was already a pinnacle expert in this world. He should have destroyed a few mountains when he was free, but he was slaughtering the weak sea race members here instead. He was killing them with the power of a half-step to the universe. This was too much of a bully, he had no integrity at all. They did not know that Yun Yang's main purpose was to accumulate the air of karma. Yun Yang was eager to elevate his cultivation method to the 8th stage of the endless divine art. As long as he achieved another breakthrough, it would not only mean a leap in his ability. As long as he could break through to the 8th stage, Yun Yang was confident that the current Demon Emperor, Sea King, Phoenix Emperor, and the rest would all become small shrimps that he could kill with a single slap. The improvement of his ability was still too slow. Boom, 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 the mountains along the coastline were destroyed one after another. Rocks flew everywhere and dust filled the air. Ji Lingxi and the rest had destroyed no less than 30 to 40 mountains so far and were still advancing forward, expanding their gains. As the mountains that blocked the waterway were gone, the seawater flowed through the gap. The Whale King, Shark King, and the rest of the sea race led a large group of experts and rushed over. They charged out of the water in a rage, but they were stopped by Yun Yang alone. Even when there were more and more experts from the sea race, they were still stopped by Yun Yang alone. Not a single one of them could take a single step forward. However, as the number of experts from the sea race increased, they saw that their tactical coordination was getting better. Recognizing the weakness that Yun Yang would not leave this line of defense, they decided to attack him from all directions and sent other experts to stop Ji Lingxi and the rest. This was probably the weakness of human strength. No matter how strong one's strength was, it was difficult to keep an army in check. The coastline was too long after all. On the other side, Dongfang Haoren and the rest of the experts from the Dragon and Phoenix clans fought in the air. They were locked in a fierce battle. It's almost time. Yunyang let out a long howl. He knew that he could no longer stop the increasing number of members of the sea race. On the other side of the coastline, a large number of experts from the sea race had appeared. Among them, a gigantic tortoise emerged from the water. However, this tortoise shell was a few times bigger than a mountain. It was the Turtle Chancellor. The second expert after Neptune had finally arrived on the battlefield. Hearing Yunyang's howl, Ji Lingxi mustered all her strength and slashed at the Turtle Chancellor's back, intending to stop the incoming enemy. Unexpectedly, her palm was numb from the impact. Shocked, she retreated quickly, not daring to continue the fight. She called for backup and retreated towards Yunyang. Shengguan Lingxiu was a soldier who knew how to fight, so she had come to join them earlier. The two ladies joined forces and charged forward. Those who stood in their way were unstoppable. The Turtle Chancellor, who had taken a blow from Ji Lingxi, was enraged for once. He revealed his true form and blocked the two ladies' way with his gigantic body. Suddenly, it opened its mouth and a jet-black sea water rushed out like a heavenly river pouring down in torrents. The stench was overwhelming. A dozen of the Fox Emperor's personal guards could not evade in time and were splashed by the black water. Before they could scream, their bodies had already turned into a pile of white bones falling from the sky. Boom! A loud explosion resounded. The Turtle Chancellor hissed in pain. It was Yunyang's powerful slash that landed squarely on the tortoise's shell. The Turtle Chancellor's body was incredibly sturdy. Yunyang's slash did not really hurt him, but it did not stop him from crashing into the sea, stirring up waves that obscured one's vision. Yunyang took the opportunity to gather all his men. A gust of wind blew past Dongfang Haoren and the others who were still fighting. The wind is tight. Brothers, hurry up. Dongfang Haoren did not know whether to laugh or to cry. *Sike. Why do you look like a bandit who has encountered a tough opponent? Where is your dignity as an unparalleled expert? It seemed like Yunyang's information had a strong mention of robbery. It was called the black and white ruthless duo who do not rob the heavens or something like, the sky is 9 feet high, plucking the feathers of swallows as they pass. It was indeed a bandit's nickname. It seemed like this bandit's bad habit had been extended to this day. In spite of this, all of them were aware of the situation and used the momentum to retreat. All the saint-level experts of the human race followed behind Yunyang and retreated. None of the saint-level experts of the demon race or the sea clan dared to pursue them. Without a pinnacle expert to watch over them, chasing after them would be suicide. Dongfang Haoren and the others did not retreat back to the Fox Emperor city but back to the Crimson Soul Mountain. The ultimate war between the two races was about to begin. This wave of destruction to the sea clan and defense against the seawater was enough. Now, there was not much water flowing out from the destroyed mountain. It was impossible to empty the sea completely. Even if they blew up countless more mountains, the destruction would end here. This time, the strategic goal had been achieved perfectly. Next, it was time for the main event. Dongfang Haoren and the others had to return to take charge. Because the final battle was about to begin. Chapter 1495. Time passed in the blink of an eye and only a few days were left. Once Dongfang Haoren, Shimen Fengfu, and the others returned to Bloody Soul Mountain, they immediately gathered the troops and checked the combat groups of their martial artists. For the experts in sects, these were common methods, but for the rogue cultivators in the Jianghu, grouping them into groups was a big problem that they had never encountered before. Therefore, they had to undergo pre-battle training. However, most rogue cultivators were unruly, used to fighting alone, free and undisciplined. To form a combat group was not something that could be done in a short period of time. If they could not be smoothed out and forced, not only would it not be beneficial to the formation, but it would also create disharmony, contradictions and flaws. It would be even more unsightly. With this in mind, the three palace masters simply assigned all the rogue cultivators to Zhan Wufei, and they were all incorporated into the Sacred Heart Palace. Then they took out the entire Sacred Heart Palace and assigned people to train them. Originally, such a move would take a lot of effort and time. However, if the rogue cultivators of the Jianghu were allowed to do whatever they wanted, once a battle broke out, they would be thrown into disarray. It would be a good thing for them to not be able to hold their own, and it could easily affect the regular combat formations of the heavenly palaces that had already been formed. This was definitely not a groundless worry. Rather, it was a situation that was entirely possible and even inevitable. It was imperative for the three palace masters to prevent this in advance, but only God knew what the final effect would be. Many of the rogue cultivators were not used to receiving controlled training and other arrangements, and were even disgusted by it. Everyone was hot-blooded and volunteered to resist the invasion, to shed their blood and fight. It was nothing, so why did they have to listen to their commands? Learn to walk? Formation? I've walked all my life and you're telling me I don't know how to walk? Everyone can just kill the demons when the battle starts. Are we going to cause trouble? Be a traitor? Aren't you looking down on us too much? The Sacred Heart Palace was busy with this. They had to do their work and explain again and again. It was impossible to ignore it and let it run its course. Just as they had said, those who could come here were all good men who disregarded life and death. How could they let them be bitterly disappointed? However, there were also rogue cultivators who were obedient, such as those who were given to Palace 9 Supremes. Well, it should be said that those who were given to Palace 9 Supremes were much more peaceful, obedient. The fundamental reason could be summed up in one sentence: try being awesome again? The meaning behind these words was clear. Do you know whose fist is bigger? If you dare to stab me, I dare to deal with you. Do you believe it? Especially now that the Palace of 9 Supremes was faintly showing signs of becoming the world's #1 sect, the rogue cultivators were all convinced. Looking at the Palace of 9 Supremes battle formation up close and experiencing it for himself, he would be able to see who was better. You are a Saint Venerable, so I will send 9 Saint Emperors to form a formation to fight with you. This is the effect of the formation, do you see? Do you understand now? It's more important to be honest. The Blood Soul Mountain was filled with cultivators of the Saint class and above. As for the practitioners below the Great Sage level, they set up camp 500 miles below the Blood Soul Mountain. If the Blood Soul Mountain really collapsed, experts above the Saint Monarch realm would still have a chance to survive, but those below the Saint Monarch realm wouldn't have such confidence. One camp after another, stretching for thousands of miles. Hu Xiaofan pulled up his pants and returned to the Palace of 9 Supremes base. After a while, the crowd asked, "What's wrong with you? What are you doing again? Why are you making faces?" Back then, Hu Xiaofan had discovered the demon clan's abnormality, which made the human race aware of the demon clan's conspiracy earlier. He had been in the limelight, but no one blamed him even though he had made a strange appearance again. Instead, they had asked more questions, afraid that they would miss out on some important clues. Hu Xiaofan looked amazed. You don't know how many people there are until you've been to the Five Valleys Valley. There are so many of them. The crowd was puzzled and asked for more details. The Five Valleys Valley was a huge valley slightly further away from the other end of the Blood Soul Mountain, but the name, Five Valleys, was only recently given. It was probably the waste of the people who gathered here every day. All of them were transported there, so the stench was so strong that it made people want to vomit. The reason why it was named Five Valleys Valley was naturally derived from the cycle of the 5 grains. Hu Xiaofan grinned and said, "You don't know this, but I've been to the Five Valleys Valley before. Not only is it a valley, but it also has a bottomless cliff 10,000 feet high. It's such a deep cliff, but now it's almost filled with feces. What do you think it's like? If there's no war for another month or so, maybe the Five Valleys Valley will be renamed to Five Valleys Mountain. It's a veritable mountain of feces. Maybe it's even higher than the Blood Soul Mountain." The crowd, who thought it was some secret rumor, frowned and cursed. Among them, a few female disciples felt nauseous and retched. Yun Xiaoxing gritted her teeth. As soon as she calmed down, she came up and grabbed Hu Xiaofan, beating him up. "This bastard, he hasn't been beaten for only 1 day, and he's already..." On the other hand, Shi Wuchen and the others stood at a high vantage point, watching as the number of people grew larger and larger. Their faces were filled with worry, and there was not the slightest hint of joy. Now, the number of martial artists who have come here has long exceeded the 50 million mark, Luo Dajiang said in a bored tone, carrying his saber. "More than 50 million? Shi Wuchen sighed. "Your information is too outdated. To tell you the truth, even now the total number of people is not enough to beat 200 million. The last count half a month ago was already 150 million. Now there are still many Saint Kings and Saints rushing here. I'm really speechless." The crowd sighed in unison. Venerables, Saints, Saint Kings. These names sounded very powerful, and perhaps in the eyes of ordinary martial artists, they were already top-notch experts. Many of these people were even heroes of their own regions. However, their strength was not enough in the battlefield against the demon clan, and they were probably not even cannon fodder. Any demon who could cross the Blood Soul Mountain and rush here would have the strength of a Saint Venerable or above. If a Saint King was sent over, it would be good enough if they did not swallow him whole. In other words, the result of praising a chicken feather as a duster would not only not be able to defeat the demon clan, but would also be sending them heads and even rations. But this was the truth and the reality was the reality. One must not say it out loud. The truth was one thing, but it was still necessary to take care of the feelings of one's own people. One's pride should not be trampled on. A long howl rose from the peak of the mountain. Leaders of all sects, come quickly to the East Pole Station to discuss the war. This was Dongfang Haoren's return, and he called for a meeting of the Bound of Universe's top brass to discuss battle strategies and tactics. Sure Wuchen's spirits were lifted. Let's go. The two of them left side by side. On the other side, a howl shook the sky. Beast Kings of Tianfa come. After a round of discussion, the three heavenly palaces as the first echelon would go against the first wave, hoping to destroy the demon clan's attack, or at least delay their advance. As for the Beast Kings of Tianfa, they would be the second wave of combat power to further attack the enemy, and the 9 Supremes would be the third wave. It would be best if they could counterattack for a while. In short, it was to exhaust the enemy's strength as much as possible. Then, it would be the final fourth wave, where everyone would go together and fight against the demon clan with numbers. However, if they really went to the last wave, the elites of the Bound of Universe's allied forces would be reduced by at least 60%, and there would not be much suspense in this war. For the Bound of Universe, for the human race behind us, we will fight to the last breath. Dongfang Haoren's expression was solemn. Everyone, there will definitely be sacrifices in battle, and everyone here may very well perish here. There is no need to say more about this. However, I hope that everyone and the disciples behind you, even if you have to die in battle, don't die in a meaningless way. At the very least, drag someone down with you. This is my only request to everyone. This concerns the life and death of the entire Bound of Universe. Everyone, it's all on you and me, please. Dongfang Haoren did not mention how dangerous the current situation was, nor did he mention how huge and unbeatable the enemy's threat was, but with just a few short sentences and the last, please. He had explained everything clearly and clearly. To be able to make the pinnacle of the human race say something like, please, it had already explained too many problems. All participants take a small token back later. This token is hard to destroy. Firstly, it can be placed on the chest to add some protection. Secondly, it's a proof of identity. As long as you write your name on it with blood, your personal information will be stored inside forever. Even if the war is unfortunate and there are no corpses left, as long as this small token is here, everyone can bury the remains of the heroes and let the future generations remember today's achievement. Dongfang Haoren still did not give a long speech. He only gave a brief arrangement before he dismissed the meeting and went to collect their tokens. If you have the intention to leave something behind or leave a message for your family, please write your will as soon as possible and send it to the camp at the back for safekeeping. As long as the logistics personnel are not all dead, everyone's will be sent home. Yes. At this point, everything was assigned properly. Dongfang Haoren, Shimen Fanfu, and the others walked out of the tents, facing the north wind at the mountain pass, their clothes and hair fluttering. There was a faint sense of desolation on both of their faces. Yunyang is still there. Yes. He said that he wants to stay there and defend Fox Emperor City with 300 of Fox Emperor's personal guards. After all, he needs to personally communicate with Emperor Rock and the others. Right now, helping Emperor Rock and the others recover their injuries and strength is the key to turning the war around. It's of the utmost importance and cannot be neglected. Everyone is working hard in this war, especially Supreme Cloud. Dongfang Haoren sighed. Bound of Universe's Supreme Cloud, Bound of Universe's Supreme Cloud, truly worthy of his name. Chapter 1496. The leaders of the various sects began to mobilize urgently. It could also be considered the final mobilization. All of them walked in a hurry, so busy that their feet didn't even touch the ground. On the side of the Palace of 9 Supremes, only Shi Wuchen and the others were running about, while Yun Xiuxin and the other first-generation disciples were presiding over the situation. As for the sect leader, Supreme Yellow Cloud was nowhere to be seen. Not only him but the 2 vice-sect leaders, who were also the actual sect leaders' wives, had not shown themselves for a long time as well. As time went by, such a situation had long raised doubts in people's hearts. Now that Dongfang Haoren and the others had personally come forward to arrange the arrangement, why did Yun Yang, who was also the leader of the 9 Supremes Palace, not show up? Gradually, some people began to express their dissatisfaction. The ultimate war between the two worlds is about to begin. All the experts of the human race have gone to the Blood Soul Mountain. The rulers of the 3 heavenly palaces and the Shen Beast Emperors of the Tianfa Holy Land have all come. How arrogant could you be, Supreme Cloud? Could it be that you've already fled because you're afraid of death? He had no intention of participating in the battle at all. The opinions of these people were passed on by word of mouth. In just a few days, there were actually quite a few people who were quite dissatisfied with this. As the saying goes, the mouth of the masses can melt metal. Supreme Cloud isn't here yet? I didn't see him. Why doesn't he come out and show his face to boost morale? He is now a ruthless character who is on par with the giants of the present age. Is he not going to participate in the battle? Afraid of death? Did he stay behind? Shenhuang hero, hee. All kinds of strange rumors began to spread and finally reached Dongfang Haoren's ears. This situation almost made Dongfang Haoren's intestines swell from anger. In response to this matter, Dongfang Haoren had specially gathered all the higher-ups. Standing at the highest point, Dongfang Haoren's voice was like thunder. Are you suspecting Supreme Cloud? Oh. Let me tell you, no one has the right to doubt Supreme Cloud. That's because Supreme Cloud has entered the Yao realm ever since the front lines were in dire straits. Up until now he has been fighting there without rest for 2 whole months. He is the one who has worked the hardest, the one who has risked his life the most. Including the few of us, we also just retreated from that side. What right do all of you have to doubt Supreme Cloud's movements? Have you ever killed a demon? All of you shut up. Anyone who dares to talk nonsense about Venerable Yun will be killed without mercy. Dongfang Haoren's anger soared into the sky. If anyone dares to say such things, they will be executed without mercy. Countless people were ashamed. Supreme Cloud had been fighting in the demon realm all along. He had been risking his life. These people were too self-righteous in their opinions. They should not have done so. Yun Xiaoxin and the disciples of Palace of 9 Supremes, on the other hand, looked as calm as usual, not showing any anger and doing what they were supposed to do. This puzzled Zhang Wufei. It had not been long since the Palace of 9 Supremes had risen to power, but its movements were not insignificant. In the past, because someone had badmouthed Supreme Cloud, the disciples of the Palace of 9 Supremes had gone around challenging him like a madman, venting their master's anger. Now that he had encountered such grievances, how could he be so calm? Aren't you guys angry? Zhang Wufei asked. Yun Xiaoxin was silent for a moment before she smiled and said, It would be a lie to say that I'm not angry at all, but all the people who come here are good men who serve mankind wholeheartedly. It's not good to be angry with them. Master once said that thousands of people have 10,000 hearts. As long as they still have loyalty in their hearts, they are good people. Good people will doubt good people, but as long as they don't tarnish that loyalty, it's enough. Zhang Wufei was dumbfounded when he heard this. Watching the disciples of the Palace of 9 Supremes leave, he suddenly felt that the Palace of 9 Supremes' position in his heart had risen significantly. He was even sure that even if Yun Yang took another step forward and left this world, the Palace of 9 Supremes would still be the Palace of 9 Supremes. This was because the disciples of the Palace of 9 Supremes had matured and had successors. In fact, they were much stronger than the heirs of the various sections. However, this breadth of mind alone was already much better than theirs. Time passed in a flash. It was getting closer to the day of the strategy of annihilation, and the atmosphere on the side of the human race was getting more and more oppressive. Everyone had been joking and chatting for the past few days, but now they were silent, sitting cross-legged with their weapons in their arms and resting with their eyes closed. All of them were people who had been living on the edge of life and death in the martial world all year round. They knew very well that a great war was coming. On this day, it was a rare sunny day without a single cloud in sight. The sun shone brightly, but there was not even a hint of wind. It was completely still. On the other side, in the realm of demons, in the territory of the Dragon Clan, this huge city had been demolished. Almost all the buildings had been destroyed, leaving only the once majestic city walls. On top of the city walls, white banners rose slowly. Demon Imperial City. The city was filled with white banners, but there was no wind today. The white banners hung in the air like dead snakes, motionless. The Demon Imperial City, which could originally house tens of millions of people, had been demolished, leaving only the city walls. The emptiness of the city was imaginable, but it was also hard to imagine. Even the Demon Imperial Palace, which was the most majestic and dignified of them all, no longer existed. The only thing left was a tall altar that was hundreds of feet tall. It was completely carved out of a single piece of rock. At the top of the altar, a huge memorial tablet was placed, but there were no words on it. Looking at the front, It was a huge statue of the Monkey Clan holding a golden rod with one hand, standing on one leg, looking ahead, looking down on all living beings. Below the huge statue there were steps, one by one all the way down. At this moment, the Demon Emperor, who was wearing a golden cloak, was standing on the platform in front of the altar. He raised his head and looked at the altar. His expression was filled with pride and arrogance. The world annihilation strategy would be activated today. The Golden Dragon Guards, Silver Dragon Guards, Black Dragon Guards, and White Dragon Guards each gathered 9 by 9, lined up neatly, looking impressive. On the opposite side, there were also the high-ranking Phoenix Clan cultivators, who also gathered 9 by 9, complementing each other, multiplying their power. It was already late in the morning. The Demon Emperor slowly raised his hand. A series of low and deep drum sounds rang out slowly, gradually increasing in intensity. The sound reverberated in all directions. The drum sounds seemed low and deep at first, but they were uniform. It was made up of 99,999 large drums being beaten at the same time. As the drum beat continued, from all directions of the huge square, there were Demon Clan members coming in one after another. Countless Demon Clan warriors dragged groups of Demon Clan members, who were tied up tightly into the square. On the ground, there were already countless mysterious lines drawn, and small squares were densely arranged. All the sacrificial warriors who were prepared to be used for the world annihilation strategy, no matter how they struggled or how angry they were, once they entered the small squares would emit a strange yellow light. Bathed in the yellow light, the Demon Clan warriors no longer moved, but just knelt on the ground, straightened their bodies, raised their heads and automatically exposed their necks, as if they were ready to be killed. It seemed that at this moment, their divine souls had been completely shocked, and they were willing to sacrifice themselves without any regrets. Groups of Demon Clan members were escorted in, starting from the middle and the front of the square, one by one. Soon, the square was densely packed with the heads of Demon Clan members. More and more yellow light gathered and gradually spread out. The executors of the Demon Clan all had cold faces, and their hands and feet were extremely agile. They quickly came in, put down the sacrificial warriors and turned to leave without any hesitation, and so on and so forth. The densely packed Demon Clan members seemed to be lined up all the way to the horizon with no end in sight. No wonder they wanted to destroy all the buildings in the Demon Imperial City. With such a layout, if they did not destroy the entire Demon Imperial City, how would there be enough space? Suddenly, a demonic wind rose. In the sky above the Demon Imperial City, countless figures of the Sea Clan appeared, densely covering the entire sky. In the next moment, countless offerings from the Sea People were thrown down like dumplings. There were many Demon Clan warriors below who caught them one by one and pressed them into a small grid. Their movements were neat, fast, effective, messy, and orderly. There was no chaos at all. This reign of Sea Clan sacrifices in the sky lasted for a full quarter of an hour and finally stopped. Below, a large flag suddenly waved. Reporting to your Majesty, the number of 1 billion sacrifices has been reached. It was a loud and clear report, but it meant that the people were about to be plunged into misery and suffering. The Demon Emperor, who was standing proudly in mid-air, nodded lightly. Open the sacrificial altar. Activate the formation. Immediately, a blood-stained Dog Clan member was brought to the front of the sacrificial altar, and knelt down in a separate square on the sacrificial altar. That was the Dog Emperor. Although the Dog Emperor was forced to kneel down, his cultivation level was high after all, and his mind was not completely taken away. He suddenly raised his head and shouted sternly, "Long Yuqian, you have gone too far. You will be punished by the heavens. You have massacred the people of the Demon Clan, you will definitely be punished by the heavens." The Demon Emperor's expression changed and he shouted, "Do it!" With his command, the formation in the surroundings lit up as if receiving an imperial order, as if 4 suns had suddenly risen in the surroundings. The light was blinding. However, yellow light filled the center, and the figures of the Demon Clan members could no longer be seen clearly. In the surroundings, huge blades were slowly forming. Every blade was at least 10,000 feet long, and they shone with a cold light, and it was a ghastly sight. Cast. The blades in the surroundings suddenly moved, and as the blades cut through the air, the trails of the blades became longer and longer, killing from all directions, and ruthlessly slashed towards the countless Demon Clan members kneeling in the center. Puff, 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 countless heads fell from the saber and perfectly round pillars of blood shot up into the sky. Following that, countless souls of the Demon Clan looked around blankly in the air, and suddenly disappeared, swallowed by the yellow light. The entire square was instantly filled with the stench of blood, and instantly turned into a bloody hell. The shadows of the four blades cycled back and forth, crisscrossing, and in no time, the 500 million Demon Clan members and 500 million Sea Clan members had all been turned into corpses. This was a horrifying and extreme massacre. It was also a tragedy that had never happened before in the history of this world. The blood of the beheaded Demon Clan members did not flow to the ground, but together with the bodies that had lost their heads, they were turned into pieces of minced meat, and the drops of blood flowed into the yellow light. The yellow light became thicker and thicker, and in the end, it condensed into a solid yellow line, and rushed into the altar's formation. In an instant the clouds dispersed, and the yellow light completely disappeared. The square became clean and spotless as if nothing had happened. But the nauseating stench that lingered in the air reminded all the Demon Clan members of what had happened here. On the altar, the Dog Emperor who was being beheaded, was still cursing when the blade light chopped off its head, but was immediately pulled away by the yellow light. At the last moment he looked up to the sky and shouted, "Zhou Yao, I have let you down in the past." Chapter 1497. Before the Dog Emperor could finish his sentence, his primordial spirit was pulled away by the yellow light and disappeared without a trace. The Phoenix Emperor, who was watching from the side of the altar, waved his hand. There was no change of expression on his cold face. The next batch began. Just like before, it was orderly, messy but not messy. The towering giant altar sucked in the souls of billions of Monster Clan and billions of Sea Clan members in batches, as if it couldn't eat its fill and continued to gorge itself on them. The whole process lasted until the morning of the second day. The end of the last batch of sacrifices was completed by another Demon Emperor who was pushed onto the stage. The Pig Emperor. The Pig Emperor didn't say anything. He only laughed coldly from the beginning to the end before he died calmly. 10 billion demons and 10 billion members of the Sea Clan were turned into nothingness in one day and one night. The sky above the entire demon imperial city was silent, but there seemed to be countless ghosts crying and wailing. Finally, the 20 billion sacrifices were all killed. The sacrifice came to an end. At this moment, the entire stone altar had already turned dark red, as if there was an endless amount of blood flowing on it, but other than that, there was no other movement. The Phoenix Emperor frowned. Suddenly he waved his hand and shouted, "Kill again." The demons looked at each other. Kill again? Kill who? The sacrificial offerings were all dead. Before the Phoenix Emperor finished speaking, the 8 experts of the Phoenix Clan attacked together and quickly captured a golden dragon guard and a low-level saint of the Phoenix Clan. Without any explanation, he brought the dragon and the phoenix onto the high platform and pressed them to the ground in the empty space. The 2 experts of the Dragon Guard and the Phoenix still didn't know what was going on. They were dumbfounded and terrified. What happened? This was not in the original plan. We are the trusted followers of the Emperor, the elites of the Dragon Clan and the Phoenix Clan. Your Majesty. Your Majesty. The Phoenix Emperor's face was as cold as steel. Kill. Guide the souls of the dragon and phoenix into the altar. Saber light flashed. The dragon and the phoenix immediately turned into smoke, dying in an instant. Their bodies and souls followed in the footsteps of billions of creatures as they surged into the altar. The dark red color of the altar suddenly became even more intense. Then it disappeared and turned snow white. It was filled with a sacred and solemn atmosphere. After a while, it even emitted a bright white light, which made people feel relaxed and happy. It was a feast for the eyes and the heart. At the same time, a murmur seemed to come from beyond the heavens and resounded in the hearts of all the demons. At this moment, all the demons realized one thing: the world annihilation strategy. It was done. The white light on the altar gradually grew and soared into the sky, spiraling endlessly in the air. The demon sovereign looked over, and so did the Phoenix sovereign. The 2 emperors heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. They could both sense that the white light contained a terrifying power that could destroy the entire world. The demon sovereign paced with his hands behind his back and smiled happily. Phoenix sovereign, are you going to guide it or am I going to guide it personally? The Phoenix sovereign pondered for a moment, frowned and said hesitantly, originally, the demon emperor should have personally carried out this magnificent feat, the white light destroying the world, and even the magnificent feat of awakening the demon world for thousands of generations. However, this world-destroying white light still possesses great power. Those who use external forces to activate the white light are extremely likely to be devoured by the white light. After all, it is formed by the lives of 20 billion demons. If they are devoured by the white light, it is inevitable that they will be injured. The Phoenix Sovereign looked at the Demon Sovereign. His gaze was a little conflicted and complicated. It was as if he was anticipating something, but also as if he was worried about something. All in all, at this moment, the Phoenix Sovereign's gaze was almost indescribable. It was as if there were countless personalities clashing intensely at this moment. The Phoenix Sovereign was so conflicted that he couldn't be sure what he was thinking. The white light destroying the world was already a foregone conclusion. However, whoever guided the white light would suffer the backlash. This was also a well-known fact. The Phoenix Sovereign hoped that he would guide it. However, he was also looking forward to whether his big brother could stand out at this moment. To not let himself suffer this injury? If he stood out, it would prove that he really treated him as a brother, a biological brother. He really didn't want to let himself suffer any injury. Then what should I do? If he didn't stand out? If he didn't stand out, it would be easy. However, was there only scheming in life? Was there only success and failure? Was there only infighting and scheming? The Phoenix Sovereign was struggling. He was anticipating and also fearful. He even made a decision in his heart. Big brother, as long as you stand out now, I will give up on my tens of thousands of years of scheming. From now on, I will only be your brother. I won't be the Phoenix Sovereign. As long as you stand out. However, he was also fearful. If my big brother really stood out and I really gave up, would I be willing? The Demon Sovereign was deep in thought. Because he was deep in thought, he didn't see the Phoenix Sovereign's complicated gaze. The Demon Sovereign was also very worried about this. The power of this white light to destroy the world was unimaginable. From the very beginning, the Phoenix Sovereign had mentioned the possibility of this backlash. The Demon Sovereign had already foreseen this and had always been worried about how he should proceed with this matter. According to his true thoughts, in the entire demon race, there were only two sovereigns who could guide this light to destroy the world. He and the Phoenix Sovereign were strong enough, qualified enough, and loyal enough. As the leader, at this critical juncture, the demon race still needed him to hold the fort. Naturally, he couldn't take the risk. If he really suffered a backlash, then what was the point of unifying the demon race in the sea, land, and air? What was the point of annexing the bound of universe? The Demon Sovereign had never thought of giving up. Not only was the Phoenix Sovereign powerful, he also had the support of the Nirvana flames. His self-healing ability was unparalleled in the universe. In this case, it was still best for the Phoenix Sovereign to guide it. Even if he suffered a backlash, he wouldn't die. He was a phoenix. He could be reborn. That was the Demon Sovereign's plan. However, he didn't expect that the Phoenix Sovereign was also worried about this. This is a heavy responsibility. The Demon Sovereign, who had already made up his mind, couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. He obviously hoped that the Phoenix Sovereign could take the initiative to take on this responsibility. The Phoenix Sovereign pondered for a moment more. Seeing that the Demon Sovereign remained silent, a hint of death finally flashed in her eyes. He calmed his emotions and said, "Brother Long, you're responsible for the entire demon race. You can't afford to lose anything. If Brother Long is at ease, you can leave this matter to me. I have the Nirvana flame. Even if I suffer a backlash, I can still maintain a certain level of strength." The Demon Emperor was relieved and laughed. "Why would I be worried about Brother Feng? Feel free to guide him. If we succeed, I will share the entire world with Brother Feng. What is mine will be yours." The Phoenix Emperor smiled amiably and said, "Then I'll take care of this matter, but I must ask Brother Long to give me a golden dragon core aura, the kind with Long Yun. My power is inferior to Brother Long's. If the backlash is too intense and causes a mistake in the plan, it will not be good. I also have a lot of protection so that I won't die from the backlash and won't be able to share His Majesty's world." Golden Dragon Core Chi. The Demon Emperor's power source. The Demon Emperor didn't even think and threw a golden dragon aura towards the Phoenix Emperor. He laughed and said, "Brother Feng, if it's not enough, I can give you another one to help you achieve this feat." The Phoenix Emperor squinted his eyes and smiled. "One is enough." The Demon Emperor didn't see that the moment the Phoenix Emperor turned around, although she tried to control herself, her white face had already turned as red as blood. Even her tall and straight body was trembling slightly. That was a sign of extreme agitation. Even with her intelligence, she couldn't control herself. "You gave up. You really gave up. You really pushed me to sacrifice myself. But do you know that this is my plan for tens of thousands of years? This is my ultimate goal. My heart hurts. I want to die. But I look forward to it. From now on, I am the Phoenix Emperor. You are the Dragon Emperor." At the side, the Demon Emperor took a deep breath and said, Brother Feng, the order to gather has already been given. However, not only did the Peng, tiger, wolf, leopard and the other races not gather, even the forces that were gathered have already retreated. You and I still have to, but at this moment the Phoenix Emperor's thoughts were no longer here. He was born wise and resourceful. He had calculated everything and could determine victory from 1,000 miles away. However, even though a wise person was wise, once he was tempted by a great temptation, his rationality would become insignificant. Just like the Phoenix Emperor at this moment. At this moment, his thoughts, his entire spirit, had been attracted by the white light of the world annihilation strategy. His emotions were so complicated that even 10,000 books couldn't describe them clearly. His eyes were filled with the white light of annihilation. He didn't care what the Demon Emperor said anymore. In fact, he didn't even hear it. Brother Long, prepare to go to battle. The Phoenix Emperor let out a long howl, putting all of his thoughts into action. His body seemed to have transformed into a huge phoenix impatiently, soaring into the sky with his original form. At the same time, a thick nirvana true fire surged out. The Phoenix Emperor soared into the sky with his original form and headed towards the white light of annihilation. However, a white light suddenly shot out from the Phoenix Emperor's mouth. It was a white light that was almost the same as the white light above the altar, but much weaker. The Demon Emperor, who was watching the development of the situation, suddenly had a thought. This white light from the Phoenix Emperor is so familiar. The white light from the Phoenix Emperor combined with the white light from the altar. The white light from the altar was like a wanderer that had found the direction to return home. Its originally solid state suddenly changed and it started to transfer towards the Phoenix Emperor bit by bit. However, after a while, the white light of annihilation had already finished transferring from the altar, and the nirvana true fire around the Phoenix Emperor had turned into a pure white holy light. Wisps of formless matter gathered towards the Phoenix Emperor's body from the altar. The Phoenix Emperor rose higher and higher, and an indescribably powerful aura became stronger and stronger. The Demon Emperor stood below and looked at the Phoenix Emperor in the sky. His expression slowly turned ugly. This was because he could clearly feel that the Phoenix Emperor had become unprecedentedly powerful. If she wanted to kill him, all she needed to do was to breathe. The power of the world annihilation strategy had reached such a terrifying level. And what was happening in front of him? Was it inevitable or was there something else? The mind of an emperor would instinctively suspect anyone and any possible motives. In the past, the Cat Emperor and the Fox Emperor were like that, and now the Phoenix Emperor was also like that. Drops of blood suddenly fell from the sky, and the moment they landed on the ground, they immediately ignited into flames. The Phoenix Emperor said anxiously, "Swear to set off immediately. The power of the light of annihilation is beyond imagination, and I can't hold on for too long. I have to release it as soon as possible. I'm going." With a flap of her wings, the Phoenix Emperor couldn't wait any longer and tore through the space, disappearing in a flash. Set off. The Demon Emperor rose into the sky and shouted, "The great cause of the demon race will be decided today." Chapter 1498. The Demon Emperor took the lead and flew out. Then came the Golden Dragon Guards and the others. Outside the city, the roar shook the earth as the army set off. They soared into the sky, their demonic aura filling the air as they tore the space apart and advanced towards the Blood Soul Mountain. Every expert of the demon race had an indescribable fanaticism on their faces. This day had finally arrived. After so many sacrifices, this day had finally arrived. Bound of Universe, we are coming. All the Saint Kings and above tore the space apart at the same time. They followed the footsteps of the Demon Emperor. In fact, the main force of the demon race had already assembled tens of thousands of miles away from the Blood Soul Mountain. They were only waiting for the order. Today was the day to attack the Bound of Universe. With the Demon Emperor's order to attack, the sea region also began to actively cooperate. As the waves slowly rolled, mountains slowly emerged from the bottom of the sea and rose quickly, firmly blocking the thousands of miles of mountains that Yun Yang and the others had destroyed. The mountains continued to rise, gradually leveling with the surrounding mountains. The established waterway was repaired, causing the flow of water to increase by 30%. Countless dragons soared into the sky, creating clouds and rain, adding to the water power. A long roar shook the sky. The next moment, Prime Minister Turtle, who rarely moved, revealed his huge body and soared into the air. In the air, he lowered his head and said in a desolate voice, "Your Majesty, your subject bids farewell today." The Sea King had a complicated expression as he said, "Prime Minister, it may not come to that. There is enough seawater now." A faint smile appeared on Prime Minister Turtle's face as he said, "There was originally enough seawater, but unfortunately, the bound of universe has destroyed a lot of it during this period of time. Not only has the new seawater been lost, but even the original stock has been lost by a third. If we don't go to extremes, I'm afraid the sea race won't be able to make this trip." The Sea King let out a long sigh. "Your subject will use this life to help my majesty in the sea race." Prime Minister Turtle nodded and no longer looked at the boundless sea. He turned his head and his huge body rose higher and higher. The Ministry of Housing went to a higher place above the thousands of dragons. With a long roar, endless hurricanes howled and clouds gathered for tens of thousands of miles. Heavy rain poured down. Prime Minister Turtle, who was aiding the rain, was not done yet. He was using his innate magical power, the heavenly pillar. When a cultivator cultivated to the extreme, they would be able to form the Dharma of the world and hold up the sky with one hand. However, for people like Prime Minister Turtle, their bodies were connected to the world. In the dark clouds, Prime Minister Turtle's 4 legs were like 4 pillars that reached the sky. They extended down from the sky and reached the ground. However, all the water in the entire universe flowed over and merged into the dark clouds, turning into a downpour. Amidst the unprecedented rain that seemed like the collapse of the sky, the 10 mountains that were connected to the Blood Soul Mountain, which were originally lifeless ice mountains, suddenly emitted thick smoke. A volcano eruption? Dongfang Howren and the others felt a chill run down their spines when they saw this. Yesterday was the official day of the World Annihilation Strategy. Everyone had expected that the World Annihilation Strategy would not be completed in a single day, so it was not a big deal to extend it to today. The longer they delayed it, the better it would be for the human race's strategy. It would be best if they could delay it for 5 or 6 days. However, the situation of these 10 volcanoes erupting at the same time was beyond everyone's expectations and they were caught off guard. It was not that they did not look for active or dead volcanoes that had once emitted smoke. After all, once a volcano erupted, the destruction would only be worse. However, these 10 mountains in front of them had been snow mountains for hundreds of thousands of years. Just the amount of snow on the mountains was immeasurably thick. In everyone's understanding, these mountains were connected to the Blood Soul Mountain and were inseparable. Not to mention anything else, just the fact that many places were covered in mystical ice that was difficult to form without 1,000 or 10,000 years of frost was enough to explain the problem. Whether it was Dongfang Howren or the other 3 rulers or Yin Yang, they had long treated these mountains as a natural barrier that was similar to the Blood Soul Mountain, a protective force on their side. But now, they were appearing in the form of volcanoes and even began to spew lava and flames. This was not just unexpected, it was an unexpected event that could not be guarded against. And when this unexpected event occurred, other than catching everyone off guard, it also created an unimaginable disaster. Calm down. Dongfang Howren's forehead was covered in sweat, but his expression was calm as he commanded, "Everyone do not panic. The changes in these mountains are only ordinary volcanic activity. At most it will cause some disturbance, not enough to affect the Blood Soul Mountain. Even if the mountain is gone, it does not lead to the human side so it has no effect on the grand plan. Everyone, maintain your position and continue to pay close attention to the demon race's movements." The rain continued to pour. Seeing the flood dragons in the sky, Beigong Liuli, Shimen Fangfu, Python Jiu Dong Qitian, and the others moved in unison. They leaped up and rushed towards the clouds, obviously wanting to kill these flood dragons and slow down the flow of the water. Unfortunately, the group had only just begun to move when the boundless lightning in the sky struck down without any fuss. Its target was the group, and the flood dragons were not affected at all. This was another effect of the Turtle Minister activating his innate ability. Activating his innate ability consumed a lot of energy, using up 10,000 years of his lifespan to activate the sky-piercing pillar. But while he was activating his innate ability, the entire world was his territory and all the wind and thunder in the world were under his control. If he used up his lifespan and still could not achieve his goal, then the Turtle Minister would suffer an unpredictable consequence. But during this period of time, no external force could interrupt him. Thus, even with the 3 hegemons cultivation bases, the moment they made contact with the clouds, they were struck down by the thick bolts of lightning. Their efforts were in vain. Seeing this scene, everyone's expression changed and their eyes were filled with shock. After all, in the eyes of the majority of the people on their side, the 4 rulers led by Dongfang Howren were the strongest fighting force on their side. With them working together, they should have been able to win. Who would have thought that the moment they moved, the halberd would break and sink into the sand, dying prematurely? The turtle minister was a peak saint. The ultimate move of burning his own soul made Dongfang Haoren and the others helpless. The rain was like a heavenly river flowing into the human world. The waves are quickly moving. Wu Xiaofan's hearing was the best. Although he was at the back, he could still hear the roaring of the sea. Hong hong hong. The 10 volcanoes erupted at the same time as if they were waiting for the rain. Endless lava, like a fire dragon, soared into the sky from the top of the mountain, and then smashed down heavily. Following this was a landslide that shook the heavens. Lava flowed everywhere like a river. Wherever it passed, even the snowy mountains that had not melted for tens of thousands of years and the mysterious ice that was said to be indestructible were all turned into nothingness in an instant, not to mention the endless mudslides that were rolling down. Dongfang Haoren and the others looked at the vast ocean of water that mixed with the mudslides rushing down from the snowy mountains towards the sea. They felt powerless and helpless. This was especially true on the human side. Everyone calm down. Dongfang Haoren shouted, "This is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. The demon calamity will turn into a natural calamity. Everyone go to your posts and defend your positions. Even if you are hit, you are not allowed to lose your position." Dongfang Haoren felt his throat go dry and his eyes were bloodshot. He clearly knew that this was just the beginning. It had not even officially begun. The power of the monster race's world extermination strategy had not arrived yet. The tsunami of the sea race was still brewing. When these two powers gathered together, it would be the true test and disaster. The torrential rain continued and there seemed to be a huge hole in the sky. The endless water of the heavenly river flowed into the human world. Now, there was the melting of the snowy mountains that had not melted for tens of thousands of years. What kind of power would the sea race display to increase the degree of this disaster? Dongfang Haoren could not care about anything else. Standing at the mouth of the blood soul beast, he looked in the direction of the monster race. He had a premonition. It's coming. It's coming. The true test was about to come. Python 9 was smashed back by the lightning and he immediately gave the order, "Tianfa Shen beasts, advance 500 li. Show your true form, battle form, everyone prepare for battle." Python 9 had clearly made preparations for the worst. If the Blood Soul Mountain was broken and the seawater flowed in, then the Tianfa Shen beasts would use their huge bodies to fill up the gap. Even if they had to sacrifice their lives, they would block it back. The seawater was rising at a speed visible to the naked eye. The waves became more and more violent. Countless members of the sea race revealed their true forms in the sea, stirring up the waves. Their huge bodies and vast demonic energy forcefully stirred up the seawater, brewing again and again. Wave after wave, it became more and more forceful, but it was not violent. It was like boiling a frog in warm water, continuously stirring up the seawater, turning the entire sea into raging waves. The only obstacle was the Blood Soul Mountain. Their only target was also the Blood Soul Mountain. The sea race was waiting, accumulating their strength. Once the seawater rose to a level that they thought was acceptable, they would immediately unleash the most extreme wave attack. And at this time, there was a flash in the sky, and a towering giant suddenly appeared in the sky. Endless lightning flashed across his body, illuminating his face. Lord Supreme Cloud. It's Lord Supreme Cloud. Master. It's Sect Leader Master. The humans were overjoyed to see the sudden appearance of Supreme Cloud. It was Yun Yang who had soared into the sky with the Dharma of heaven and earth. The divine edge was unleashed at full force, sweeping from east to west. The saber light turned into countless rays of saber light that sliced through the sky. The bodies of the flood dragons fell from the sky in pieces, howling in pain. Yun Yang did not show any mercy, nor did he stop. He did not even bother to collect their inner cores. He just charged forward, killing everything in his path. Yun Yang had displayed his ultimate strength, his highest cultivation base, without holding anything back. To these beginner-level and high-level Saint Realm flood dragons, wherever the divine edge passed, their souls were annihilated, their bodies and spirits destroyed. One of the flood dragons was grabbed by the dragon tail with his free hand and straightened it. He used it as a long whip and smashed it in the air. Dragon scales were smashed all over the place. Chapter 1499. The countless lightning bolts that gathered in the sky were all controlled by him with the power of Shen Thunder, and he used it to counterattack the flood dragon. There were even more lightning bolts that were gathered by him, forming a huge thunder ball that smashed towards Prime Minister Turtle with a ferocious momentum. Old Turtle stood tall and firm, allowing Yun-Yang to bombard him as he pleased. There was not a single scratch on his body that connected heaven and earth. He continued to summon the ominous clouds, guiding the rain from the universe to pour more and more violently into the ocean, fueling the flow of the water. Lord Supreme Cloud. It's alright if you hit me. Hit me as much as you want, I won't mind at all. Prime Minister Turtle's gigantic head spoke in human language. This is my life's only pursuit, the last battle of my life, a glorious battle. After this battle, regardless of the outcome, there will be no more Old Turtle in this world. Prime Minister Turtle smiled peacefully. Lord Supreme Cloud, you have your pursuit, your protection. This Old Turtle has my own dream and shelter as well. To be able to assist in this apocalyptic battle in this lifetime is more than enough. Amidst Yun-Yang's silent and relentless bombardment, Prime Minister Turtle howled into the sky. A ray of light shot out from his mouth, piercing through the void and into the vast universe. The amount of rain that fell had actually increased at least 20% more than before. In spite of this, spots of white light appeared on Prime Minister Turtle's body as well. Prime Minister Turtle. Yun-Yang said angrily, when this white light covers your body, it'll be the end of your life. It'll be too late even if you regret it. When that time comes, you'll perish, unable to reincarnate and vanish from this world forever. Have you lived for hundreds of thousands of years just for a momentary show-off? If you stop now, I'll let you live. Prime Minister Turtle guffawed, his voice reverberating in the air. Lord Supreme Cloud is right. I've lived for hundreds of thousands of years just to die today. To die here. To let future generations see the bound of universe's scenery, to taste the flesh and blood of the bound of universe's humans. This is the greatest wish of my life. Ah. You're courting death. Damn you. Yun-Yang hollered and whipped out his purple jade flute, channeling all his strength to summon the art of slaughtering the world once again. This time it was focused on a single point and poured all of it onto Prime Minister Turtle's shell. Boom. The entire world seemed to tremble. Oh. Prime Minister Turtle opened his mouth and spat out a torrent of blood like a river, but he was still laughing. Such strength. Lord Supreme Cloud is impressive indeed. To be able to injure me when I'm merging with heaven and earth. Unfortunately, I can still take at least 3 more blows like this. I wonder how many more times Supreme Cloud can do it. What about that attack just now? What Prime Minister Turtle said was true. He had burned his soul, origin soul and inner core. Prime Minister Turtle's current state was already at the pinnacle of this world. If Yun-Yang's own ability had not reached the pinnacle of this world, in addition to the purple jade flute support and the extreme art of slaughtering the world, it would be difficult to shake him. However, even with Yun-Yang's ability, it was already his limit to execute such a ferocious attack twice. A third strike would exhaust his energy, but to break the Prime Minister Turtle's defense, he would need at least 4 more strikes. Based on this, even if Yun-Yang managed to break the Prime Minister Turtle's defense regardless of the cost, he would inevitably be exhausted. How would he deal with the subsequent battles? At this moment, even with Yun-Yang's intelligence and decisiveness, he had fallen into a dire situation. Chirp chirp. A crisp chirp of a bird rang out as a small fiery red shadow shot out from Yun-Yang's embrace. The red shadow was none other than Gigi. When the Turtle Prime Minister opened his mouth to speak, Gigi rushed into the river of blood in the Turtle Prime Minister's mouth like a bolt of lightning. It was like a moth flying into a flame, jumping into a sea of fire. There was no obstruction at all as it rushed into the Turtle Prime Minister's stomach. Prime Minister Turtle was stunned for a moment before he smiled and said, "Is this Lord Supreme Cloud's backup? I know that Lord Supreme Cloud has a strange bird that can devour the Phoenix King's Nirvana fire. However, although this bird is mystical, its cultivation base is low. I've rarely used it, but its cultivation base is at the pinnacle of Saint's level. My body has long formed its own universe. Even if a high-level saint were to enter my body, he would be refined by me. It's a pity for this mystical bird." Yun-Yang did not answer. Instead, he turned the purple jade flute into a mountain-like weapon and smashed it down once more. Even an extreme move like, "So what if I slaughter the entire world?" was useless against it. He could only hope that Prime Minister Turtle was just bluffing and exaggerating. Boom. Prime Minister Turtle let out a low grunt, but his limbs were still supporting the sky and the earth. He said leisurely in a composed manner, "Lord Supreme Cloud, you have 2 more chances. After these 2 times, even if you don't hit me, I'll disappear. The human race has heroes, how can the demon race not have any ambitious ones? Let this old man be the demon race's hero in this battle. The water flow is enough. Prime Minister Turtle threw his head back and guffawed, looking heroic. It was completely different from the wretched demeanor he had seen in the past. Yun Yang knew very well that the Prime Minister Turtle's words were true. He was using his life as the price for the demon race's chance of winning this battle. Yun Yang needed at least 2 more attacks to end this man. However, the result of his forceful attack was that he would be completely drained. Just like what Prime Minister Turtle had said, the water flow was enough. Was it worth it for him to pay the price of being completely drained and unable to fight anymore? At this moment, something unexpected happened. Prime Minister Turtle, who had been calm all this while, suddenly let out a miserable cry. What is this? Those who were watching the scene were dumbfounded, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. The Turtle Chancellor's 4 towering legs had disappeared without a trace, and the Turtle Chancellor had reverted to his original appearance of an elderly man. Trembling, his face pale, he looked at Yun Yang and asked, "Supreme Cloud, what kind of bird is that strange bird?" Yun Yang's heart was sweating profusely at the question. He did not know what kind of bird Gigi was either. Of course he could not say that he did not know. Instead, he feigned indifference and said, "How does Prime Minister Turtle, who has everything under control, feel now? Does it feel good?" Prime Minister Turtle chuckled bitterly. 280,000 years of cultivation base gone in a day. How can it not feel good? It's a pity that despite Supreme Cloud's meticulous planning, there are still mistakes. Your bird has only consumed my soul but not my internal core. Suddenly he stood in the air and hollered, his voice hoarse. Yun Yang's expression changed as he hollered, "Come out quickly." In the blink of an eye, Prime Minister Turtle's body exploded. The power was incomparably ferocious and terrifying. At the very last moment before the Prime Minister Turtle triggered his self-destruction, a red shadow shot out from his mouth and disappeared into Yun Yang's embrace. In the next instant, the power of Prime Minister Turtle's self-detonation came chasing after him. This was the extreme self-destruction of a pinnacle saint. His life, remnant soul, internal core, and physical body were all part of this explosion. The power of this explosion should be above that of the Falcon Emperor's self-destruction. However, although his self-destruction was shocking, it did not cause any damage. It was just that after the self-destruction, a giant tortoise shadow that was more than 10 times larger than the previous one suddenly appeared in the sky. The gigantic tortoise wandered freely in the air, its illusory gaze trained on Yun Yang as it said with a smile, "Lord Supreme Cloud, you've predicted the enemy's moves indeed. You've really taken care of this old tortoise with 2 preemptive strikes. I'm impressed." Then the gigantic tortoise disappeared without a trace, returning to the boundless dark clouds in the sky. However, the storm did not stop with the Prime Minister Turtle's demise. It continued to fall. It was getting heavier and heavier. Yun Yang cast his manifestation powers once again, stirring up a hurricane to stir the clouds and forcefully divert the water. However, the dark clouds formed by the gigantic tortoise shadow could not be dealt with even by his manifestation powers. He could only watch as the storm continued to fall. Obviously, this was the result of Prime Minister Turtle's final self-destruction. It was unshakable. In spite of this, the Prime Minister Turtle himself disappeared from the world forever. A pinnacle saint of the Sea Clan had fallen. He was also the first ace expert to perish in this ultimate war between the 2 clans. The tide suddenly surged, but it was not because of Prime Minister Turtle's shackles but because someone else had arrived. Neptune's voice came through gritted teeth, "Supreme Cloud. You killed my Prime Minister Turtle." Yun Yang hollered, "Not only him, I also want to kill you. Do you dare to show yourself? If you dare to come, I will kill you too." Yun Yang's words were half a threat and half a provocation. Neptune had been severely injured previously. Even with the help of the primordial dragon and phoenix fire, his vitality was still greatly damaged and his combat power was diminished. Without the oceanic divine staff in hand and the perishable arrow in hand, if he dared to show himself, Yun Yang would definitely kill him. Neptune was not fooled, however. He howled at the sky, "Break through the bound of universe and leave no one alive. I will wait for you." Yun Yang's eyes were overflowing with murderous intent. Now, the waves were still accumulating power in a cycle, obviously waiting for something. It was undeniable that the longer they waited, the more seawater there was, and the higher the chance of breaking through the Bloody Soul Mountain. Under the full force of the Sea Clan, the waves had drowned the Fox Emperor city. 300 janissaries were stationed in the middle of the Bloody Soul Mountain. The entire Fox Emperor city had completely turned into a swamp. If one were to look across the sea, they would find that it was a beach that spanned thousands of miles, extending all the way to the depths. Moreover, there was a mountain range that was rushing over here. Obviously, this was the real trump card of the Sea clan. They had come to collect the sea. They had compressed their survival range to the greatest extent, cutting off all means of retreat, just to break through the bound of universe's barrier. The flood dragons in the air were mostly slaughtered by Yun Yang as if he was venting his anger. The few that were left were also scared out of their wits and fell into the sea below, not daring to come out again. Yun Yang swept back and forth on the surface of the sea, the powerful aura of a half-step into the starry sky killing countless lower cultivation base members of the Sea clan. He came and went without stopping. In less than an hour, the number of Sea clan members that had been killed by Yun Yang had already exceeded millions. However, the seawater had risen to a shocking level. Chapter 1500. Faced with such a situation, Sea Emperor had no choice but to order all the members of the sea to dive 10,000 feet below the water surface. At this distance, Yun Yang's aura could not withstand it. The corpses of the members of the sea who had been killed by Yun Yang had already formed a thick layer on the surface of the sea. Thousands of feet-long sea snakes, octopuses, and giant sharks could be seen everywhere. The number of casualties pained Sea Emperor to the core. These were all experts at manipulating water from the Sea clan who had stirred up trouble, but they had died before they could achieve anything. He could only sigh helplessly. Supreme Cloud, do you only know how to attack the weak? Yun Yang scolded him righteously. Bullsh *T. Which eye of yours saw me attack them? Left eye, right eye, or lower eye? I was only flying here and there. Is it worth it for me to kill them with their insignificant cultivation base? Are you people of the sea thinking too highly of yourselves, or are you looking down on me? Sea Emperor was so angry that he was about to flip his stomach. Nonsense. You're bullying the weak. Shameless. Utterly shameless. Yun Yang chuckled coldly. If you're not satisfied, you can come up and take revenge. If you don't dare to do it alone, you can gather your subordinates and attack me together. I'll wait for you here. Come up. If you don't dare to come up and fight, Sea Emperor, do you only know how to talk big? The Sea Emperor really did not dare to do so. With Yun Yang's astounding capabilities and his current condition, he would only be courting death if he went up. Even if he attacked as a group, it would be difficult for them to defeat Yun Yang. They would only be sending more of the Sea tribe's high-level combat power to their deaths. Therefore, Sea Emperor could only continue scolding Yun Yang without any qualms. Suddenly, Sea Emperor in the sea and Yun Yang in the sky stopped provoking each other at the same time and turned to look at the other side of the coastline. There seemed to be a huge commotion coming their way over there. As Yun Yang turned to look, he saw a flash of white light amidst the dark clouds on the horizon, approaching from afar. Following that, a huge spatial crack appeared. The white flame from afar rushed out of the spatial crack with a boom. Yun Yang focused his gaze and saw that the white flame was a gigantic phoenix. Upon closer inspection, it was the true form of a phoenix. Was it the Phoenix Emperor? Yun Yang focused his gaze and saw that the Phoenix Emperor was bleeding from her 7 orifices, looking extremely horrifying. As soon as he came out, he shouted, "Sea race, drum wave!" In the next moment, an awe-inspiring white light floated out from his body. Yun Yang's expression changed abruptly. He clearly sensed that even though the white light seemed to be inconspicuous, it actually contained hidden might, and it actually possessed the strength to annihilate him. A wise man does not stand under a collapsing wall. In a flash, Yun Yang was already hundreds of thousands of feet high in the sky. The white light slowly fell along the coast, moving towards the Blood Soul Mountain. It seemed to be moving slowly, but in fact it was extremely fast. Everywhere it passed, regardless of whether it was the ground or the ocean, a layer of white light condensed. It was filled with a pure and holy feeling, untainted by even a speck of dust. Even the torrential mudslide would be sealed the moment it came into contact with it. The more Yun Yang watched, the more frightened he became. He dared not act recklessly, watching as the white light entered the Crimson Soul Mountain and began to spread within the mountain. Yun Yang suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. At this moment, his heart actually stopped beating. A great sense of danger that he'd never felt before suddenly assaulted his heart. With a sudden thought, he shouted without care, "Everyone on the Crimson Soul Mountain, leave immediately! Immediately!" His voice was like a thunderclap, deafening to the ears, causing the entire world to tremble. Dongfang Haoren, who was presiding over the battle on the Crimson Soul Mountain, looked over in confusion. Why? Dongfang Haoren. The people of the Crimson Soul Mountain, leave immediately. Tear through space and leave. Yunyang roared with all his might. Quickly, quickly. Seeing Yunyang lose his composure and become so flustered, even though the four rulers did not know what accident had happened, they had already realized that some terrible danger was about to befall them. For a moment, the hearts of the four all stopped beating. In the next moment, he turned his head without hesitation and ordered, "Leave. Leave. Quickly." Just as the order was given, he had already turned into a gust of wind, a long rainbow, quickly sweeping up all the human experts who had not yet reacted. Many of the Saint Monarchs reacted and immediately left, tearing through space and leaving the Crimson Soul Mountain. But there were even more people who did not react in time, and there were even many who were resting in the caves, preparing for battle. They were still confused, not knowing what had happened. However, their instincts as martial artists were also telling them that danger was approaching. A terrifying crisis that was enough to kill them was about to descend. Yunyang descended from the sky like a bolt of lightning, quickly turning into a cloud of wind and clouds, sweeping up the Fox Empress and the others, and then the 300 personal guards, as well as the 70 or so human experts who had just rushed out of the caves but could not escape in time. He swept them up into the air, tore through space and threw them in. This was already the limit of what he could do. When he turned around again, wanting to try to sweep up the last wave of over 200 people who had just rushed out of the caves, the white light had already broken through the Crimson Soul Mountain and shot up into the sky. Yunyang, who was too close, was immediately affected and screamed. Although he tried his best to soar into the sky, he still suffered from the corrosion. When he was high up in the sky, blood spurted out from all 7 orifices at the same time, and he was injured both internally and externally. Looking down, he was shocked to see that his left foot was actually gone. As a pinnacle expert who was half a step into the starry sky, his left foot had actually been melted by the white light for a moment. If the other cultivators were to come into contact with it, how could they still have a good ending? Yunyang swallowed 2 streams of chi of life and hurriedly accelerated his left foot, but there was still lingering fear in his heart. If he had been a step slower, he might really have died under the surprise attack of the white light. This white light was actually so sharp. Whether it was the Crimson Soul Mountain that had the support of the starry sky or the pinnacle expert who was half a step into the starry sky. Was this the power of the world annihilation strategy? Yes, the world annihilation white light had officially begun to show its power. In the blink of an eye, the white light covered the entire Crimson Soul Mountain from the bottom up. All the human experts who were still on the Crimson Soul Mountain and could not escape in time, about 200 people, had all turned into a pool of blood in an instant. Not even a single bone was left behind. More than 200 Saint Monarch experts. They had all fallen without a sound. Dongfang Haoren, who had escaped a step earlier, stood high up in the sky, looking at the blood flowing quietly on the Crimson Soul Mountain. He only felt a buzzing sound in his head. His entire person was stunned. Just a moment ago, they were still standing there with a bewildered expression. In the next moment, they had already turned into flowing blood. They were all people with lofty ideals who did not hesitate to die for the human race. They had resisted the invasion of the human race for thousands of years. They had already determined their fate, to be buried on this Crimson Soul Mountain. No one would have thought that their final destination, their final death, was not in battle, but because of a wrong command they had lost their lives. Yes, Yunyang had reminded them. It was best for all the people stationed on the Crimson Soul Mountain to withdraw. Once the power of the demon race's world annihilation stratagem was over, then they could leave or stay. But Dongfang Haoren did not want to give up this strategic stronghold, so he withdrew a portion and left a portion. When he stayed, Dongfang Haoren remembered saying, "If I stay here, I don't know how strong the world annihilation stratagem is, but it is very likely that I will die under this power, so I won't force it." At the time, everyone was laughing. For humanity. For the bound of yellow. What harm is there in dying? We have been stationed here for many years, we have long disregarded life and death. It doesn't matter if you die, then you die. At most, remember to burn some incense for us when the time comes. Everyone's laughter seemed to still be ringing in his ears. Dongfang Haoren had fiercely slapped his own face twice. Tears flowed freely. "Brother?" The white light paused for a moment. Then, with a loud bang, under the dumbfounded gazes of all the humans, the Crimson Soul Mountain that had guarded the bound of yellow for millions of years, this indestructible barrier that separated humans and demons, this immortal mountain that contained the power of the universe's powerhouses, had been punctured like a balloon. But the balloon that had been punctured still had remnants. The Crimson Soul Mountain had turned into nothingness, not even a single piece of stone remained. The entire mountain turned into quicksand and flowed down with a swoosh sound. Half of it flowed to the bound of yellow, the other half flowed to the demon realm. The natural stronghold of the Crimson Soul Mountain had disappeared in an instant. It had disappeared without a trace. The entire world was silent. Including the Sea Emperor, the Sea Race, and even the Phoenix Emperor who had been mentally prepared, they were all stunned. They had imagined this scene appearing thousands of times, but, when it really happened in front of them, the Phoenix Emperor was still stunned. What kind of great power was this? It was actually so horrifying and terrifying to the extreme. The demon race. The entire demon league. The cause that they had worked hard for hundreds of thousands of years, the goal that they had worked hard for, today, it was like a soap bubble had burst, disappearing in front of them. It had come true. The Crimson Soul Mountain had completely turned into quicksand. The Phoenix Emperor couldn't help reaching out and scooping up a handful of fine sand that flowed past him. He placed it in front of his eyes and looked at it again. Very, very fine sand. Rather than saying it was sand, it was more like powder. No, it wasn't powder, it was fine powder. Because it was already so fine that it was like a speck of dust, the tentacles seemed to be non-existent. The entire mountain instantly disintegrated, as if the sky was collapsing and the earth was sinking, and then after burying him, it further disintegrated without a trace. The Phoenix Emperor suddenly looked up. Looking at the flat Crimson Soul Mountain in front of him, his eyes were filled with a dazzling light. The two main goals of my life have been achieved today. The goal that I had worked hard for 20,000 years has been achieved today. The Phoenix Emperor felt the wild power in his body, barely managing to stand in the air. Seeing the Crimson Soul Mountain collapse, the usually calm Phoenix Emperor couldn't help crying. Chapter 1501. The Phoenix Emperor's body swayed and swayed, as if he could not control his own body. His face bled from all orifices. His entire body was splitting open. Blood flowed everywhere, and when it landed on the ground, it became a raging fire. He was not injured, but his body almost exploded from the violent power. At this moment, the power was still increasing. Yes, he had reserved 10% of the World Annihilation Stratagem's power for himself. He had studied this 10% for 20,000 years. He thought he could withstand it, but he did not expect the World Annihilation Stratagem to be so powerful that his current body could not withstand it at all. 10% was not enough. I can only absorb 5% at most, and that would increase my power by more than 20 times. But the other 5% must be released as soon as possible. The Phoenix Emperor swayed and fell from the sky. He could not withstand it anymore. The Ocean Emperor gave an order from afar. Raging tide rise. The sea at this moment surged like never before. All the members of the Sea Clan acted as if they were ready to risk their lives after the order was given. They directly unleashed all their demonic energy. Following the order, they pushed the seawater in the same direction, raising the tide. All the sea beasts, sea monsters, and sea demons at the bottom of the sea surfaced, trying their best to guide the tide. The tide became more and more violent, and the height of the tide was already 70,000 zhang high. And this was not the peak, it was still accumulating power. The last wave. The Ocean Emperor roared, his face ferocious. As expected, it was the last wave. It was also the last wave. All the seawater in the sea was moved by the Sea Clan, and with the momentum of overturning the sea, pushing the mountain forward. Yes, there was no need to push now, the mountain was gone, and the endless seawater rushed towards the Blood Soul Mountain that was now flat. 10,000 zhang high was usually an exaggeration, but today at this moment, it was 10,000 zhang high, sweeping the heavens and earth. This scene was seen by the mysterious yellow camp, 500 li away. Everyone could clearly see that the Sea Clan's wave was already as high as the blue sky. Demonic wind howled along with it. The vanguard of the Demon Emperor's army had already reached the Blood Soul Mountain. Looking at the collapsed Blood Soul Mountain, the Spirit Demon Emperor was overjoyed. Pass down my order, the attack begins. There was no time to wait for the demon race's billions of troops to move together. They had to attack immediately. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. The bound of universe was right before their eyes and within their reach. Unify the demons in the air, land, and sea. He was the greatest demon emperor since the birth of the demon realm. Now, even the human regions were going to be brought into the palm of his hand, unifying them all. Not only do I want to be the demon emperor, I want to be the overlord of the entire world. The one and only. The Phoenix Empress was indeed impressive. She actually used the apocalyptic white light to destroy the Blood Soul Mountain in an instant. I'll give you a great merit. For a moment, the demon emperor was filled with satisfaction and in high spirits. At this moment, the excitement in his heart had reached an uncontrollable level. Even his breathing was a little hurried and his white hair was fluttering. The Golden Dragon Grand Elder immediately answered, "Yes." He then looked at the spirit demon emperor worriedly and said softly, "Your Majesty, you shouldn't tire yourself out too much. There are some things you can just instruct us to do." The demon emperor frowned and shouted, "Imminent peril, eternal hegemony. What are you waiting for? Right now, I am full of energy and have endless energy. How can I be tired? I want to personally lead the army to the front lines and completely destroy the Blood Soul Mountain, establishing the eternal hegemony of the demon realm. Hurry up and pass on the order." The Golden Dragon Grand Elder's expression became unprecedentedly respectful and fervent, and he even had a strong urge to kneel down and worship. The Demon Emperor really didn't have it easy. For the sake of this day, the Demon Emperor had worked hard, poured in blood and racked his brains. Look at his head, it was all white, snow white. Even his entire face had become old and skinny, even the vitality in his body could be felt diminishing, decreasing and disappearing rapidly, but he still had to work so hard, so forward as expected of. The Golden Dragon Grand Elder was just about to pass on the order when he suddenly stopped. Something didn't seem right. Yesterday morning the Demon Emperor still had a head full of black hair, and it was full of vitality. Why did it change so much now? Not only had the color of his hair become snow white, but it was also like withered grass, without any trace of vitality. Also, why did the Demon Emperor look so haggard? Yesterday morning he was clearly mature and charming and full of vigor. Also, what's with the state of his vitality? Even I can feel it, it's not fake. What's going on? Could it be that the Demon Emperor was really racking his brains for the demon realm, and completely did not notice his own state? The Golden Dragon Grand Elder almost shed tears. It was really too touching. Pass on the Demon Emperor's order, attack with full force. Take down the heaven realm. He shouted the order. Upon hearing the order, the demon realm army rose into the air like a tidal wave, and followed behind the huge tidal wave. The Demon Emperor took the lead and quickly rushed to the front. The Demon Emperor of all ages to conquer the heaven realm, the supreme achievement was all on this day. Huge waves surged and rolled over. The entire sky was filled with seawater in the demon realm. As the Demon Emperor had said, today was the day to destroy the heaven realm. On the other side, Dongfang Haoren, Shimen Fengfu, Beigong Lioli, and the others saw the situation change and their eyes all turned red. Things were clearly developing in the worst direction. The worst? There was no other. According to everyone's expectations, even if the world-extinguishing stratagem was successful and the mighty power of the Blood Soul Mountain was broken, causing the Blood Soul Mountain to collapse, there would still be a process of the mountain collapsing, and there would still be a portion of the mountain left behind, right? With the size of the Blood Soul Mountain, even if the mountain collapsed, the remaining rocks would still be enough to stop the enemy, giving them enough time to react. But they never imagined that the white light would be so tyrannical. Not only did it destroy the mighty power of the stars that had existed for countless years, it also caused the entire Blood Soul Mountain to completely turn into smoke. The sturdy and majestic Blood Soul Mountain, the indestructible Blood Soul Mountain, was like a soap bubble, an illusion, gone. And it was all in an instant, in the blink of an eye, it was all gone. This matter caused Dongfang Haoren and the others to feel disbelief, and their minds to collapse. The natural stronghold had completely turned into a path. And it was such a wide path, using it as a path to attack and adding on the fact that everyone was rushing in, how could they resist? Just thinking about it was enough to make one despair. But even if they couldn't resist, they still had to resist. Since we're guarding this place, aren't we already prepared to die? If the monster race really rushed in, humanity would be finished. Charge. Charge. At all costs. Block for me. Die. We will also die here. Dongfang Haoren roared, his throat almost emitting smoke. All the experts of the three heavenly palaces quickly reacted. The first wave spread out, and under the leadership of the three palace masters, they charged forward without fear of death. The combined strength of the three heavenly palaces was over 10 million, but the number that could be used in this battle was only around 2 million. Facing the sky collapsing tide, everyone had a determined expression. Without any hesitation they were ready to die. The Sea Emperor, the Shark King, the Whale King, and the top experts of the Sea Clan stood on the waves, laughing with pride as they charged in, their fighting spirits high. Now that the water was pouring in, the bound of universe would soon be filled with the ocean. How could they not be in high spirits? No matter how strong the human race was, even if they had the will to die in front of the general trend, they were like a mantis trying to stop a chariot, an ant trying to shake a tree. A long howl came from the sky as Yunyang Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu rushed back and dove down like lightning. Taking the lead, Yunyang plunged into the sea. His water manifestation was operating at full force, unleashing its full potential in an attempt to stop the tide. How could he not know that the chances of success were slim? Such a violent force of the entire ocean was not something he could control. If this method could really stop the tide, he would have used it earlier. However, he was not willing to give up, and he would not give up. With an explosion that sounded like a silver vase exploding, hundreds of thousands of feet of seawater, including the countless sea demons and beasts within, suddenly froze in the air and exploded. Apart from the Saint Monarchs and Saint Venerables, everyone else in the vicinity had their bodies smashed into smithereens, leaving not even their bones behind. Then the entire stretch of seawater began to roll back, the waves turning downward and colliding head-on with the first wave of the demon race. A series of screams rang in the air, one after another, endlessly. At least half of the demon race's troops were knocked down by the sudden turning waves. Those who fell into the water were muddle-headed and helpless before they were devoured by the sea beasts that came later. This wave alone had killed at least millions of demon race and sea clan members. Of course, the millions mentioned here were mostly ordinary sea beasts. As for the elite forces that participated in the final battle, only about 100,000 of them were killed at most. This number was insignificant. It did not harm the Foundation, nor did it affect the grand plan. However, the endless air of karma rushed into the space like a tidal wave. With another explosion, the forces of the three heavenly palaces had officially engaged the Sea Clan and the demon race. As soon as they clashed, and it was only a single collision, blood sprayed into the sky. A roar came from afar. Supreme Cloud. The voice was extremely shrill and there was a piercing pain in it. It was Dongfang Haoren. Yunyang sucked in a deep breath of essential qi, trying his best to calm the churning qi and blood caused by the recoil. Turning his head, he saw Dongfang Haoren in midair, fighting with more than 30 Dragon and Phoenix Saint experts alone. He was shouting and fighting fiercely, his courage unstoppable. However, he was fighting with all his might. Every move he made was filled with all his might, attacking with all his might. This was not the way to prolong the battle. As the saying went, the hardest breaks easily. Dongfang Haoren must have understood this, so how could he be so foolish? As he fought with all his might, Dongfang Haoren looked over with bloodshot eyes and shouted, "Supreme Cloud! Things are not going well. Ask the Palace of Nine Supremes to withdraw from the battle." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.